We'll get people to sit down.
Joe and George.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading of the call.
Dear Supervisor, please be advised that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors will meet at 6 p.m. on July 19th, 2021. In the county boardroom, all county board members' claims are due in the county clerk's office by noon on July 2nd, 2021, so they can be prepared for audit committee approval. Sincerely, Paul Severson.
Okay, roll call.
Rick Nimitz. Douglas Winters.
Here.
Sally Miller.
Here.
Richard Seisha.
Here.
Joe Feltus. George Brandt.
Here.
Beth Killian.
Here.
Randy Tullifson.
Here.
Michelle Haynes.
President. Oops, I guess wrong one.
That didn't sound like Michelle either. I was going to look on here just in case. I don't see her. So I'll put no for there. Oh, Joe is here now. John Austin.
Here.
Chuck Wallach. Tim Zeglin.
Present.
Dan Schreiner.
Here.
Kellen Nelson. Jeannie Nutter.
Here.
Kurt Skoyen.
Here.
Ron Johnson. Got 14 and 3.
Yeah. Certified open meeting law requirements been met and complied with, a proper posting and notification. We have an 11-item agenda. Looking for approval.
Second.
One thing I'd like to do is move up item B to as soon as possible because of, under Sally Miller, it's going to be the COVID-19. I'd like to move that up before appearances. Or
Well, you want it up that far?
at least up to like 7 o'clock-ish.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
after,
so-
yeah.
Somewhere in that area. So that's the only change that would be on it so far.
Which one is that, John?
It's 8B.
Up to 5 something.
Okay.
7-ish.
Yeah, like 7 o'clock-ish. Other than that, no changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think that's it, right? Now we're ready to go into the
Oh, minute.
No, we got the minutes.
approved minutes from June.
Killian will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Killian, seconded by Nutter.
See anything?
No here, no comments. All those in favor signify by
Saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed? None? There have nobody online either, huh?
Put your mic
Yep.
down.
We've got,
I have a kind of a cold or something. Oof.
we got Rick up there.
That's the only one, okay.
Yeah, I don't see Michelle, I don't see Ron, and I don't see Kellen.
So county board training member is Rick Niemer, but tonight it's somebody else, and I'll let Krista do the introduction.
All right, so we do have about an hour-long training session for all of you tonight. It is in regards to harassment, diversity, and unconscious bias training. This was supposed to be conducted last spring, I believe, but due to COVID, we had postponed. So we do have a presenter here with us tonight, and I'm just going to give a short introduction to Jessica. So Jessica Schrader is joining us from Aegis Corporation, and she is a risk management consultant. In this capacity, Jessica provides insurance and risk management services to clients throughout the state of Wisconsin. Jessica began her career with 2 safety-related internships while attending college. Further experience was gained at Miles Kimball, Organic Valley, Wausau Insurance, and CISA 10. Jessica presents throughout the state of Wisconsin as a member of the various groups and organizations. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Technology Safety Management from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. Jessica has worked with many organizations throughout the Midwest in such areas as environmental compliance, health and safety, risk management, liability, and workers' compensation. Jessica has spent the last 16 years working with public sector clients. However, previous experience was gained in industries, was gained in insurance, food processing, general industry, state government, and mail order merchandising. Jessica is excited to be developing and distributing valuable information to her peers interested in safety and risk management. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'll try not to go the whole hour so we can keep you guys on schedule. And as Krista said, this training originally was scheduled for, I believe, last spring. And prior to that, I had come up a couple different times now since I've worked for Aegis and done this countywide training at Trempealeau County. So done several sessions for all of your county employees. I've done the same thing at a lot of other counties that we insure, and for a lot of other boards as well. So even though I work for Aegis Corporation, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. I actually also work for the County Mutual. Aegis is the third-party administrator for Wisconsin County Mutual, which is your insurance company. You folks actually own the insurance company that provides your liability and your property insurance to the county. So your member owners, I work on behalf of County Mutual, Community Insurance, both of those insurance companies that are ran through the Wisconsin Counties Association, who's the general administrator, and then we're the third-party administrator. So we do all the functionality on behalf of the insurance companies. So we're just going to talk a little bit about harassment, diversity, and unconscious bias. Obviously, very timely topics. Anytime you flip on the news, flip on the TV, look at the internet, people are talking about these types of things. And it's totally for your information. So if you have questions or concerns or examples as we go through, feel free to voice them, and I'll do my best to try to help out. We have some members of the county here, actual county employees, in addition to all you county board supervisors. And anything that we can't figure out an answer for, I'll take back to Krista or whoever the right person might be internally, or maybe it's an attorney question. We'll go back to our attorneys or your corp counsel and try to get you the answers that you need. But really, I always like to start out by talking about the people. You folks here in the room tonight, all the employees of the county, all the different contractors, all the different clients, really people are the most valuable asset. And in this day and age, everybody's unique, everybody's different, and we really need to capitalize on that uniqueness. And we do that in order to build a stronger, more capable workplace. If every single one of you supervisors, if every single one of the employees, every one of the team managers or department heads were exactly the same, we won't be able to get as much done as we can with everybody coming with a different background, different skill set, different education, different list of experiences. And we also know that when a person feels valued and they sense the support of other people, they're going to be more productive and more happy. And if we've watched the news or listened to the radio or the internet or anything recently, what are employers really struggling with right now? Attracting new people, getting those people to stay. I don't know if you've went to any restaurants or any more tourism type places over the summer. Everybody's running short staffed. And that's always been kind of an issue in the public sector to begin with. And we see people are just quitting their jobs, by the hundreds every single day now. So it's a real issue. We've had this issue we've been talking about in the public sector for a while. I did a lot of these presentations. You have to be patient with me. This is only my second one since COVID, so my second presentation since March of 2020. I used to do about 10 presentations a week, and just like anybody else, we've been real slow too the last year and a half or so. But the world's completely changed, in the last year and a half that I've been out here talking to folks. So it'll be really interesting to see how things go forward. We've always notoriously had openings in the highway department, in the sheriff's department, out at the nursing home, some of those positions that are hard to fill, that are hard to keep people in. And now, like I said, the world's completely different than it was a year and a half ago when we were talking about this. So it's even more of a timely topic now. And as we talk about all these things, think about your staff here at the county, think about the department heads and managers, but also think about yourselves, and anybody that you're interacting with and all those different folks are interacting with, because that really does create the whole picture of all the people in Trempealeau County that we're speaking about tonight. So when we think about harassment, really harassment's behavior that is personally offensive to somebody, that impairs their morals or their morale, that interferes with the work environment or their effectiveness as employees. It's usually an issue of one person's abuse of power over another. That's what we see as we do the investigations. So as I said, we're the liability insurance company for you, but then for 51 other counties too in the state of Wisconsin. So we do a lot of these types of investigations, as do your HR departments here and in our other counties that we work with, and other school districts and cities. So an employer or supervisor is required to provide a safe and healthy environment for everybody in the workplace, and also to maintain compliance with all the applicable regulations. And you'll see as we go through here, there's a ton of different regulations out there, and more added every single year. So we really do need to be aware of those too, and be mindful of what we're saying and what we're doing and how we're conducting ourselves. Ignorance is bliss really isn't the answer. We got to make sure that we're trying to be mindful and trying to be respectful of everybody. It's important to know that harassment is a form of discrimination, and it's related to one or more of these legally protected personal characteristics of an employee that I just referred to. So when we think about unwelcome conduct really means it's something that the employee did not solicit, they did not ask somebody to do to them. It's considered undesirable by the employee. They are not happy that something is going on. It's something that, again, it's a tough situation because it's based on perception. You know, you might say something to somebody, or you might have a conversation with somebody that you don't find any issue with at all, but that person could be offended by what you said. They could be offended by the conversation. Maybe somebody overhearing the conversation is offended. So it's tough when we're going through these investigations because we have to take a look at both the harasser, the person that's labeled the harasser, and the victim's conduct, their respective positions in the county, and then all the circumstances surrounding the incident or whatever took place. And we got to try to figure out exactly what happened. So we really are looking at perception versus intention. Most people don't go around trying to be mean to other people. But again, you know, there's a lot of sensitive information out there. There's a lot of people that feel one way or another, and we just got to, again, try to be as respectful as we can. So sexual harassment has been a big topic for years and years and years. A few years ago, the Me Too movement came out. A lot of folks probably remember that. And so we did a lot of sexual harassment training at that time. It is important to know that it is unlawful to harass a person because of that person's sex. It can include unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or just really any type of physical harassment of a sexual nature. And it doesn't have to necessarily be of a sexual nature either. If maybe I applied for a job in the highway department and Krista pulled my resume and said, yep, I'm a good candidate, and Al took a look at it and he's like, we can't hire her, she's a woman. That can be considered sexual harassment because I'm being discriminated against for a job that's predominantly male. Same as at the sheriff's department, or maybe out at the nursing home. If we had a gentleman that applied for a nursing position or a CNA or an LPN position, we could have the same type of situation there. So also, when we look at these investigations, both the victim and the harasser can be a male, they can be a female, they can be two women, they can be two men. There's no right or wrong way that we can have one of these situations. But basically, the conduct is explicitly or implicitly affecting somebody's employment. It is interfering with their work performance, or it's creating an intimidating or hostile work environment for everybody else that has to come to work and work around those folks or serve around those folks. We have two main types of sexual harassment. We have tangible employment action, and then hostile work environment. So tangible employment action, the key to this one, there needs to be a supervisor involved, or somebody that they believe is a supervisor. And in the county world, it can be a little bit difficult because people might not know exactly who their supervisor is. Maybe they know who their direct supervisor is, but do you think HR could have an effect over somebody's job here in the county? Or even county board supervisors? Could you have control over somebody's position or have some say in somebody's position or their livelihood here in the county? So a tangible employment action is basically like a quid pro quo type situation. It's anything that's tangible, a hiring, a firing, a promotion, a change in compensation, a demotion, anything along those lines. So again, the key is there needs to be a supervisory official involved or somebody that the employee believes is a supervisory official. So for instance, if an employee said, you know, I really want to go on a date with you, and they keep badgering the employee and say, you know, if you do this for me, I can make it work for you too. I'll give you a promotion, or we can give you a better job, or give you a change in compensation. There has to be something tangible that's taking place in that type of situation. But again, there has to be a supervisor, somebody they believe is a supervisor involved. Whereas the flip side of the tangible employment action is the hostile work environment. Here we're looking at frequency and severity. From time to time, we're all going to say something or do something that probably wasn't in the best interest of ourselves. You know, I stick my foot in my mouth on a regular basis. I think we all do. You know, it's tough, you know, especially when you're in conversations with people you feel comfortable with, to say something that's not offensive to somebody every single time you're talking. It's very, very difficult to not offend somebody. So anyone can be involved in this type of harassment. Really, it's just unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. It doesn't result in that tangible employment action, that hiring, firing, compensation, demotion, transfer type situation. But it is interfering with somebody's work performance. It's creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. And again, this is based on perception rather than their intention. And that's what we're looking at when we're doing our investigations, is that perception over intention. So maybe we have a situation where in a work unit, there's two people that are in a relationship already, and they are doing things like talking about their weekend plans or what they did last night, or, you know, giving hugs or massaging somebody's shoulders. I don't personally want to see that, when I'm at work. So that could be creating a hostile work environment for somebody. It's interfering with their ability to do their job in the workplace. And there's so many different types of sexual harassment. And I think you guys have probably all had these types of training or seen the different articles on TV or on the internet. So I don't need to spend a lot of time going through them. But what we should take a look at is all these different protected classes out there. So we know sexual harassment's against the law. We know it's not nice to harass people or do things that, could make somebody uncomfortable or could hurt their feelings. But if you think about all the other protected classes, so age. I had my birthday on Friday. I'm 42 now. I'm considered a protected class. Age 40 is a protected class. Granted, that rule is a little bit outdated. I think if they redid it nowadays, it'd probably be more like 50, 55, 60 because folks are working so much longer. But when that rule came out originally, age 40 was a protected class. If you think about race, creed, color, all of those kind of go together, so as does handicap and disability. Marital status, that's something too you wouldn't necessarily think about, but there's still people out there that have an opinion on if you're married or not, if you're divorced, how many times you've been married. Maybe different religions have different thoughts about it. Your sex, and this has been a real hot topic. If you think about transgender and things along those lines, we're having a lot of conversations about those. And that's something I want to talk to Krista about as we go forward. I have a copy of your policy, and I put it in your PowerPoint here a little bit. This hasn't been updated since 2003. Think there's been a lot of changes in the world since 2003? That was almost 20 years ago. And I know we're doing all the right things here in Trempealeau County, but we don't want to have something happen and then get in trouble because we didn't have a policy for it, didn't have a procedure for it, and somebody, wasn't following the rules. You can go on to ancestry, religion, military, national origin, genetic information. A lot of people nowadays are going in and they're having genetic testing done to see maybe if they carry the breast cancer gene or if they carry some other type of gene. People can discriminate based on that. How are our health insurance premiums? Are they going up every single year? If we know we have people that maybe are going to cost us more down the line because of something, that they're predispositioned to, maybe we don't want to hire them. That could be an example of discrimination. So your sexual orientation, your arrest record, your conviction record, there's so many different protected classes. And then also, people are sensitive about different things in their lives. You might make a comment, you struggle with this person, and you say, well, that person's just crazy. Can every single one of us now basically say we know somebody that's struggling with a mental health issue? And calling somebody crazy, could that be offensive to that person that has a mental health issue, or somebody that's loved one has a mental health issue, or somebody that's struggling, their child, their brother, their sister? So we just got to really, again, think about what we're saying and how somebody else could perceive it. Because, again, I don't think most people are going around trying to hurt other people's feelings. It's just we say something, and it could be hurtful to somebody. So kind of keep all these different groups of people in your mind as well. And we'll spend some more time talking about bias later on in the presentation, but I thought it was important to put it in here too. Every single one of us in this room are biased. That's just the way it goes. We've all been raised a certain way. We all have different beliefs, different religions, different political beliefs. Our families feel a certain way. We've had different experiences. Maybe some of those weren't great experiences, so they cause us to be fearful. Maybe it's the media we watch. Maybe it's our coworkers, our community that we live in. But we all feel the way that we feel for different reasons. And we got to be really mindful of our biases. And we'll talk about these more as we go forward tonight. So, like I said, as the insurance company, we spend a lot of time investigating these types of situations, as does your HR department, as do all the different department heads that might be involved, or even the county board supervisors might get involved in these investigations. And I think you guys know from interacting with your colleagues and being involved here in the county government world, this happens at every single level. It's the employees harassing the employees, supervisors are harassing employees. From time to time, board members get involved. They might be harassing the employees. You guys might be getting harassed by the general public. Maybe you stop at Subway here in town and somebody from the public's upset about a decision that you made. Nobody ever comes to these meetings to voice their concerns, but they all have a lot of opinions after the meetings, right? My grandpa was in county board government in Monroe County for 20 years, and I know how it works. Guys are trying to do all the right things, and everybody out there's got an opinion on, what is the right thing or not. So we do see it at every single level out there. And it's tough, especially when you're public facing. I'm in the same boat. We have to be so mindful of what we're saying and so mindful of what we're doing. And everybody has an opinion. And we can definitely interact with those people, but there's right ways to do it and there's wrong ways to do it. And we just got to make sure we're aware of what all those are. when we think about workplace harassment and the costs associated with it, probably the biggest thing is the counties are losing really great people. Krista and I were at a conference a couple weeks ago, actually first part of June down in Madison. It was the WPLRA, the Wisconsin Public Labor Relations Association. So it was the personnel managers from all over the state, from all the different counties and the cities. And like I said, we had staffing issues before. We had trouble getting people into good positions before, and keeping them is going to be exponentially more difficult. They were talking about, like, basically we have to let the employees almost do what they want to do, from where are they working and what their hours look like, because the good employees are going to be able to basically name their ticket wherever they want to go. They said that people don't care anymore so much about money. Obviously, they have to have a living wage, but they're not leaving the jobs because of the money. They're leaving because of the conditions. They're leaving because of their coworkers. They're leaving because of their supervisors. And that's something that we can have direct control over. If we know we have a toxic department and people are just flipping over in that department left and right, that's not good. On average, it costs about 1 year's salary. So if you have a $45,000 position and we've lost 8 people there in that work group in the last year or year and a half or 2 years, think about all that money. And then think about all that work that didn't get done because those people aren't there, or the stress or the burden that was put on the other employees that had to do the job as those people were cycling through, or the department heads and the HR people that were having to, constantly recruit these positions. And then what are people saying in the community when they know? Do you think people are championing all the awesome things Trempealeau County's out there doing? Or are they talking about the dirt, or what they perceive as the dirt, and what they like to hear? That's how people are sometimes. They don't necessarily compliment you guys and talk about all the successes and the great things that are happening. They like more of the scandalous type things. So we don't want to be losing these good staff members. There's a big cost, like I said, to train them and to get the work done. It usually takes about 1.5 years to get somebody completely competent in their position. So that's something to think about too. These jobs are complicated positions that you are recruiting and you're hiring for. So we want to make sure if we're investing in these people, we can keep them here. Obviously, there's costs associated with the investigations. If HR and department head and boards constantly dealing with trying to figure out what's going on and, interviewing people and working with the attorneys, there's time that's, again, away from the job for that. We have legal costs associated with it. Insurance is never getting cheaper. If we're constantly putting attorneys on it, or if we're having claims filed against the county that we're having to settle on the county's behalf because there is a hostile work environment here, or there is a bullying situation here, or we're discriminating, or whatever the case might be, again, that's going to lead to the higher PR, the higher insurance costs, the higher legal fees, and most detrimental, one is you're losing the good employees, and then 2, I think just that PR issue. It takes a long time to build a really good reputation, and I think Trempealeau County has a really good reputation. I watch the news, I'm on the internet, I never hear anything bad about you guys, which is great. I love that when it's one of my clients, and I never have anything bad come across my desk. But how quickly can we lose all that good work? How quickly can that be overshadowed? Pretty darn fast. So again, just try to be mindful and, pay attention to what's happening with the rest of the folks in the county. From an employee standpoint, if we have a harassment situation or discrimination situation or something like that going on in the county, it's tough on them. If I'm not happy here at work, I'm probably going to, try to take more vacation days or more sick days or call in. So then I'm not getting my job done. And like I said, my coworkers are maybe having to do my job. Maybe I'm out of vacation days, so then I'm not here at all. You could have some physical effects. Maybe you can't sleep at night. Maybe you have headaches. Maybe you're changing your appearance. If I'm coming to work and I'm sexually harassed every day because of how I look or my body or something like that, maybe I'm going to start dressing differently. Maybe I won't feel comfortable being who I am. I'm starting to withdraw from my coworkers because I'm not comfortable in that environment. There could be emotional distress. Confidence is an issue. That morale, the behavioral changes that we talked about, those turnover rates, really the growth and the creativity. The best thing that we can do is to get employees in here and keep developing them and promote them and just, let them live their whole cycle here in the county. And if we aren't able to keep the folks here, they're not going to be able to grow. They're not going to be able to bring their whole self to the workplace. So we're losing out on that too. We might only be getting a fraction of the employee when we could be getting so much more out of them. So as a county, the supervisors, the employees, the county board supervisors, we need to make sure that we're stopping any harassment immediately. Best case scenario, we're keeping it from happening to begin with. But if we do know there's an issue out there, we need to all work together to stop the harassment. We need to try to maintain confidentiality as much as possible, which we know can be tough, especially in some of the smaller work groups or some of these areas where we all know each other. We need to view all complaints as seriously. Even if they might come from somebody that likes to complain about a lot of different things, we still need to vet that out just like we would any other one. We need to investigate all of them. If folks feel comfortable, we always encourage them to confront the harasser, the one that is engaged in this type of behavior. But as we know, not all people are comfortable with confrontation. It might be a situation where it's a department head that's harassing one of their own employees. That could be very difficult for that employee to say something to the supervisor. They might feel like it's, career suicide to say something to them. They might just not feel comfortable in that situation. So we need to make sure we have other prompt outlets as well, going to HR, going to you folks, going to another department head. And that's really the way the laws work too. If I'm not comfortable going to my supervisor, I can go to any other department head. I can go to any one of you folks, but then you all have a responsibility to bring that information back to HR. Bring it back so that we can investigate. So if somebody does come and share information with you, we need to get that information back internally. And then we want to take prompt and corrective action, impose real discipline. And this is where the world's changed a lot, too, in the last 20 years. Like Krista said, I've been working with the public sector for about 16 years now. And I think back in the day, maybe we didn't do as good of a job as we could have with real discipline. But nowadays, these are real situations. People are losing their jobs over these situations. And they should be, because nobody should come to work and be miserable. It's bad enough we all got to go to work every day, right? You shouldn't have to come here and just be absolutely miserable when you're here. That's not fair for anybody involved. Want to really make sure that we're encouraging people not to retaliate. Even though it might be tempting, we don't want to retaliate against anyone. And just document. That really helps us out. We want to know what specifically happened, what specifically was said, was there anybody around when it happened, what time of day, where were you at, so on and so forth. So the more information that we have, the better we're going to be able to go through these investigations. I know nowadays we have cameras throughout the county. Almost everything you're doing is recorded. But people are crafty. If they don't want to get in trouble, if they want to just be a real bother to you, they know where they are when they're not on camera. They know where they can say things to you when there's not other supervisors around. So we want to make sure that we're doing our best to get as much information as we can. From a supervisory standpoint, both as a department head or manager or team leader, but then also from a county board supervisory level, we want to take immediate action. We want to try to monitor the work environment. We don't need to micromanage at all, but if we notice changes, if we hear maybe some scuttlebutt, maybe that's worth investigating or mentioning to the HR department. Insist any employee with a complaint. We want to, again, try to ensure a workplace free of that illegal harassment. Make sure that we have good policies and procedures. And like I said, I do want to work with Krista a little bit on yours. Yours are good. It's a real good base here, but considering that they're almost 20 years old, it's probably time for a facelift, time to update them a little bit here. Work with the different officials to make sure that we're doing the investigations the right way. You folks are fortunate. Some of my counties still don't have dedicated HR people. They might have a payroll person, somebody that's doing that type of work, or benefits, or assisting with those new hires. But you actually have degreed, accredited, experienced HR people. You have corp counsels. You have us. We have something called pre-claim loss control. I don't know if you know about that, but that's a service available to the county. If we think anything from somebody's sexually harassing somebody, or somebody's stealing, or somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be, our attorneys will get involved. Our litigation folks at the County Mutual will get involved. You don't have to pay for that. It's all part of your premium, and we'll help you go through that investigation process. So if something does, come to fruition further on down the road, we're better able to, go through that process and hopefully have a better outcome for the county. So make sure you're taking advantage of these types of services. But again, really the best thing we can do is just refrain from any of these types of situations to begin with. And as supervisors, just like our department heads, our managers, just try to do the best job that you guys can do of setting the best example possible. We want to walk the walk, talk the talk, do the right things. From an employee standpoint, like I said, we've done this training. I'll be here 6 years in September, and I've done it in Trempealeau County twice. So I'm imagining pretty soon we're going to come up for another one of the trainings. We had so many new people, too, over the years. But we want to assist those employees in making sure that they know what harassment is, going through the investigation, reporting the acts, encourage reporting, cooperating in the investigation, so on and so forth. It's always a touchy subject, but I think especially after COVID, when everybody comes back to work, it's just like I said, it's going to be such a unique time out there. So maybe it's a good time to do one of these, even if we're not right on schedule with it. So as I said, you guys have a good policy in place. It talks about prevention and training and the requirements from everybody and your complaint procedures and the confidentiality and the retaliation and discipline. So if somebody comes to you or if you have a question, refer them back to this policy. And I'm assuming this is in your employee handbook. Is that right? Probably. And it's probably available online, I would imagine, this day and age too. Probably in your your intranet, not your internet. Nope, we don't think so? Don't know? Okay, so that'll be something that we'll have to figure out from Krista and clarify. I forgot to ask her before we started today. But
I believe it's in the employee handbook.
okay, good.
But that's the personnel committee has been working piecemeal,
Yeah.
updating policies, because there's a lot that's behind.
Yep, and we talked about that. I was here a month or so ago meeting with Krista. And, you know, it's nice now we have so many good resources, you know, and everybody's kind of in the same boat that you are, all the other counties. You know, we've had so much happen over the last, 5, 10, 15 years. So everybody's in the same boat. So why recreate the wheel? You know, let's all work as a team, find other good examples, and just update. And it's important, too, that we're having our employees sign off on the employee handbooks every year. They're acknowledging, yep, I know what this is, I've read it, and then also we're doing the trainings to help them understand as well. And it's tough. You know, I deal with a lot of different types of safety and risk management. Something like chemicals, you know, we know how much chemical you can be exposed to. There's permissible exposure limits and threshold limit values. Same with noise, 85 decibels over a time-weighted average. When it comes to like sexual harassment, or any kind of harassment or bullying, anything along these lines, there isn't a certain threshold. So we have to use that reasonable person standard. Basically, if a reasonable person heard this, how would they feel? If this happened to a reasonable person, if they witnessed this, if they were involved with this. And that's really what we have to go on, because there isn't, well, 3 jokes were okay, but 4 was too many. Or, I've heard that 6 times and it was all right all those times, but now it's just too much. And things change in people's lives too. So we just have to really think about how would a reasonable person feel if they heard this, saw this, or had this happen to them, so on and so forth. The benefits we get of adjusting these behaviors, obviously that improves staff satisfaction, which is going to lead to improved retention, a better reputation for the county then, and so more people are going to want to come to work for the county. If you think about that, you're directly competing with all your other friends and neighbors out there, and we insure all of them. And if at the end of the day, do you think there's a real big difference between, say, a Department of Health and Human Services job, or a Highway Department job, or a Sheriff's Department job here, or in Jackson County, or I live down in Sauk County, or Monroe County? They're all pretty much the same, aren't they? Maybe one pays a quarter more, maybe get a 3-year newer dump truck to drive around in, but at the end of the year, or end of the day, they're all basically the same job. So if we have a great reputation here and people want to come to work here, that's going to really help, because people are going to talk about those types of things, and their friends are going to want to come here, and people are going to want to come. And not only that, we're going to have a good culture of professionals. And we said earlier, people are happy, they're more productive, they're getting their jobs done. You guys really should be role models too, as should all your employees. Think about like social media and, some of these things have just gotten so toxic and out of hand lately. The things that your employees are writing on social media, the things that you folks are writing on social media, things I write on social media. We should be the best representation out there, right? I could lose my job if I wrote something that was, inappropriate to write on social media, and I know that, so I don't do it. Obviously, we have a reduced liability exposure then if we have a nice environment internally, improved risk management, and again, most importantly, just a more civil, productive, respectful workplace where people are going to want to come and they're going to want to stay once we get them here. So all in all, it's a win for everybody involved. The biggest issues that we see out there are staff that don't follow procedures. One, they're doing things they shouldn't do, or maybe if we have a situation, a department head or the board wants to handle it themselves rather than getting HR involved or getting corp counsel involved or getting the insurance company involved. Again, you guys have resources here, so make sure you utilize them. I know sometimes it's easier, you think, to just try to do it your own way or, just take care of it internally. It might be, but what if it's not? And it could lead to more problems down the road. Like I said, it doesn't cost you any more to do it, and if anything, it'll save you money, hopefully, if we do it the right way. So reach out. And I don't know everybody in the county. You can always reach out to myself, too. You can reach out to the 3 litigation people, like I said, that we have in our office in Brookfield, and we can hook you up with any attorney that you want if you're struggling or if you have questions or problems. We want to make sure that staff aren't overreacting or active impulsively. That happens too. A lot of times we don't have a lot of these situations, so when it does happen, it can be very emotionally charged, especially depending on the content of it. So we want to make sure people are acting appropriately, that we're not trying to change somebody's mind. Maybe somebody feels like they are getting sexually harassed or they're being bullied. We can't try to minimize that and say, oh, you're just being too sensitive, or maybe if you'd wear something different, or don't be flirting with that person. Everybody's entitled to feel however they want to feel. We want to make sure that we're taking the complaints seriously, as we stated before. Even if they're coming from somebody that likes to complain about lots of different things, we still need to validate, we still need to investigate, we still need to do our due diligence. And then also failing to train the employees. And that, I think, is going to be an issue too, just like I said, because we have so much turnover happening out there. Are you guys seeing it here in Trempealeau County yet? Have you held pretty solid through COVID as far as employees, or are you starting to get more of an uptick in turnover? What do you? I don't read your paper every day, and I don't know exactly what positions are open from time to time. Are you seeing more positions open?
There's been positions open, and there's been a really active recruitment and
Thank you.
recruitment and hiring. I think, what was our last report? 25, roughly 25 people hired and 11 positions still open.
Wow.
And it's been going pretty much steady since a couple years anyway.
What's your total employee count? Do you guys know off the top of your head here? for the
200
county?
plus in the,
So,
well, and then you've got the healthcare center and
and they kind of do their own thing out there from an HR standpoint.
from an HR standpoint, yeah.
But still, I mean, even if, say it was 600, that's still, 5%, which is low, but then you add HR, or the healthcare department in there, health center in there as well. And like I said, I think it's just going to be more and more of a challenge. All the other counties were talking about this at that conference that we were at down at the concourse a couple of weeks ago, and they're doing things so much differently, like sign-on bonuses and refer a friend bonuses and things like that, just to try to get people in, which you never really have seen in the public sector before. But if you drive by any Quick Trip, I have two of them in Reedsburg down where I live. Both of them have like $1,000 sign-on bonuses, and you can start at $16 an hour. I mean, to work at Quick Trip. And they have a great retirement program. They have a lot of really great benefits now, too. So it is going to be a really unique time. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens as we all kind of start coming back to work. But Trempealeau County does have a really good reputation, and that is so important. So we just want to kind of make sure that we keep that going. And if we have been that successful with recruitment, that's wonderful. That means that they're coming here and they're not going to Jackson, which I love Jackson, too, and I love all the other ones because they're all my clients. But, the best possible team that we can build here internally, the better it is for everybody involved. So we find that employees don't report these types of things because they're fearful of retaliation. They're fear of losing their job. They have a fear of losing their job, maybe not being believed, being humiliated or being blamed for what was taking place, being ostracized by their coworkers. Obviously, there could be shame or embarrassment involved with these, or lack of understanding the complaint process or the policies, or not knowing what avenues they have available. So again, that's why we try to educate. That's why we try to train. That's why we try to make these policies and procedures available so people can reference them. But the reality is, at the end of the day, most people just don't want to file a complaint. Most people don't want to create any kind of stink at work. They just want to come here, do a good job, get along with their coworkers, serve their clients, and go home. So we want to try to make that as easily accessible for them as possible. They don't want to bring legal action against their employer. Even like work comp claims. I know we don't have your work comp insurance, but before I started doing this type of work 20-some years ago, you used to think there'd be like a lot of fraud in work comp. There's not. Most people are just honest people that get hurt. There's very little fraud in any of these types of things. Just like this, people don't want to levy action against the county. They want to come here, like I said, do a good job and go home. They expect their employers, though, to provide a safe environment, a good, healthy environment for them. And as we said, most people from time to time, we might make a mistake. We might say something we shouldn't have said or do something that wasn't the most becoming of us. The best thing we can do is just, understand what we did, understand how it could have affected somebody else, apologize for that behavior, and try to do the right things to move forward. Yep.
I just got a message from Krista.
Mhm.
The handbook is on SharePoint and it's
Okay.
accessible to all employees and all county board members.
Perfect. And you guys all know how to get on SharePoint? If you don't, they'll teach you. We just got bought out before the holidays too, so we have all kinds of new softwares and all new passwords. I just spent an hour with IT the other day trying to figure all my stuff out. So that stuff gets confusing, especially if you don't use it real often, especially if it's been COVID for the last year and a half and you hadn't had to run out and looking for these types of things. But they're accessible and they're out there for you. But good point. Thank you for helping. I have a little bit about diversity in here too, and this is such an interesting topic. I grew up in Juneau County. Like I said, I live in Sauk County now, up here in Trempealeau County. I worked at Chippewa Falls for 10 years before I took this job. I think for the most part, we all pretty much look the same. We probably have similar backgrounds, similar family situations,
I've got to
Yep.
dissuade you from that impression. We have a really significant Hispanic population.
I know that. Stick with me for a second while I'm going through it. But I did work with the White House School District for 10 years before I took this job, so I spent a lot of time up here.
And it's only increased over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who you talk to, it could be as much as 20%, 25% of our population.
Yep. And you get that sometimes because, you are a community that has so much industry in the county, which is great because that's a lot of revenue and that's a lot of tax base and things like that for the county. So you were one of those first counties to see a big influx in the more rural areas with the folks coming in with the Ashley furniture and the chicken processing plants and all of that. And it is a wonderful, wonderful thing to see, to have the diversity coming in. Maybe I should have said it differently than for this county. Maybe before that transition, and like I said, I was there for 10 years at CISA, so 06 is when I started working for the White House School District as a consultant. And I think that's really when we started to see a lot of the uptick. and I could be wrong because I don't live up here, but when I started to notice more differences with the folks that we work with. But I do still think we have now maybe two groups, predominant groups, as opposed to, like, you go someplace like Madison, where we have so much diversity, you know, people from all over the world, all over the globe down there. So kind of stick with me and see, like I said, these are hard topics to talk about. So, you know, think about this as I walk through here. If we think about diversity, really it's a mosaic of people coming together from a variety of different backgrounds and styles and perspectives and values and beliefs and all the different organizations and groups with which they interact. So the county board, we all are a certain group. Your different groups in the county serve different groups. The highway department has their groups. The sheriff's department serves everybody that they're out there working with. And different folks have different needs. And we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go through here. So when we think about diversity, we're really thinking about the people. And we're thinking about, you know, from a racial standpoint, from an ethnic standpoint, from a socioeconomic standpoint, geographic, academic, professional. And that's kind of the neat thing about the county is even though people are doing different things, you really can interact with absolutely everybody out there. You know, from a resident coming to the nursing home to maybe the sheriff's department's not just stopping a bad guy on the interstate, but they're stopping to help somebody fix a tire. And we have different people that are interviewing for our jobs and different people that have comments about the different things that are happening at the meetings, so on and so forth. But when we think about all these different people that are working together and all these different socioeconomic and geographic and professional groups, all these different backgrounds and opinions, as we talked about earlier, different life experiences. It's all about the environment that we work in. And I think the biggest thing is we need to be fluid and we need to be conscientious that things are changing and that people do have different ideas and different opinions and different thoughts. And it's really about how we're working within that environment to make sure that we're reaching our goal, to make sure that we're treating everybody the same, everybody in our community that we're serving or that we're trying to serve. And that we are trying to understand that maybe not everybody thinks the same way that we do, and not everybody was raised the same way that we do, but they still have value and they still have needs. So how are we interacting with these folks? And we're not discriminating against them and maybe not offering them a service that we're offering to somebody else because we more easily assimilate with that person. So again, it's about how what we're doing is translating to how we act and then how we're creating the teams that we work with and how we're serving the folks that we're serving. And we're making sure that we're doing that in the most respectful environment possible. So, yep.
Are you going to go a little bit longer on diversity? Because I have a question
Yep.
specifically about, okay.
Yep.
All right. I'll ask.
You can ask now, though, too, if you want.
Well, I just, I have a concern. Sometimes I hear of, throughout the courthouse, of people saying, well, we should call so-and-so. They speak Spanish, and the person whose job is not an interpreter is being called from their job, which has nothing to do with interpreting, but because they're Hispanic and they speak Spanish, they're now being asked to do something outside their job description simply because of their, so how does that, like if that person starts to feel like they're being pulled away from their job to do something that's not part of their job description simply because they're Hispanic and they speak Spanish, does that fall under racism? Where's that put us?
Yeah, and these are tough conversations to have. And I'm not an attorney. I'm going to say that, you know, to preface this. And it is hard. You know, every time you give one of these presentations, you can't always please everybody and you can't always get all the right answers. You know, I don't know. That's something that we'd have to sit down. That's almost like a kind of reverse discrimination, you know, like the person's helping and we want them to help, but we also got to be mindful, like, well, they can't get their job done if we're constantly calling them out. And then we also have to be mindful if we do have a population that's expanding, we might need to have another interpreter. But maybe, you know, there's only certain times of, I don't know, the year that we would need, like maybe tax season or something like that, where we have more of an influx of folks coming in that we would need to have those interpreters more available. So it's hard, you know. Again, it's not like we're in an area where we just have tons of resources available. And so we got to be mindful of how we're, you know, utilizing the resources that we have and being mindful of what people's job descriptions are. And if we're asking them to do more, are they being compensated for that? And then, you know, what if, you know, I speak Spanish too, and my, you know, second degree's in Spanish, I'm just not telling you because I don't want to help out, you know, so there's a lot of different things along that level. So this would be a good conversation, like, to sit down, like, with Krista and department heads and, you know, even applicable employees. Maybe someone's like, oh, yeah, I like to help, you know, and I like to feel needed, but do know I can't do my regular job, you know, sufficiently if I'm constantly getting pulled away. So I think there's some balance out there, but I don't know, you know, off the top of my head what it would be. But these are good questions to start asking because the world is changing, you know, and it's changing very quickly. And again, you guys are kind of ahead of the curve for being more of a rural area because you have had so much industry and so many folks coming into the area over the years. So if we haven't started having some of these conversations, it definitely is a good time to do it. You know, it's not going to hurt anything to talk about these types of things and make sure that we're all on the same page and we're doing the right things. And again, it's all fluid. So we might put together a plan tomorrow and then it changes, you know, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. But really, we just want to understand that everybody's different, and each person has differences, and that's what makes them unique. And that's, you know, what we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on and that we're curating, and that's what we're being respectful of when our folks are both working here and the clients that we're serving within the communities and the different positions that we have. So again, we talk about geographic location. You know, not everybody's from here. People are not only coming from maybe the next county over, the next state over, maybe they're coming from another part of the world, you know, which we didn't see so much of that 50 years ago. You know, more people didn't go to college. They didn't move so far away from home for different jobs or things along those lines. Different educational levels. People work differently. They think differently, especially if you start thinking about the different generations out there. You know, I usually, if I have more time to do this and we go into a little bit deeper, we talk about, you know, the traditionalists. We talk about the baby boomers. I'm that Generation X. Think about the millennials. Now we have Generation Z underneath them. Every single one of those groups thinks different, right? They all have different feelings on how things should be done, and they've had different educations. They've had different experiences. Family statuses. We don't have a lot of those traditional families anymore, so we can't maybe expect, you know, certain people to be able to do this or do that because they have to go home. They don't have childcare. They don't have some of these situations that was an expectation before. Our communication style, just how we're interacting with folks. Do we have Braille outside the doors on the signs? So if we have somebody that does have a visual impairment, that they can access the room just like somebody else. Their religion, socioeconomic status, their age, their gender, sexual orientation, their race, ethnic heritage. These were some of the things that we touched on earlier, but there's so many different dimensions of diversity out there. So what I was saying earlier, you know, most of us around here, like in this room, let's say, not in the county, but just in this room, most of us do look pretty similar in this room. But I bet if we start thinking about it, we probably have some Catholics, and we probably have some Lutherans and some Methodists, and, you know, some Jehovah's, and, you know, just that kind of difference. Or maybe there's different people with different educational styles here, or, you know, there's so many differences that we can't just assume with anybody anymore. And it's neat to find out all those differences about people because you can learn a lot. You know, there's a lot of neat opportunities out there. So when we think about inclusion, that really involves bringing together and harnessing these different forces and resources in a way that can be beneficial for everybody. It's really the concept and the practice of putting diversity into action by creating an environment of involvement and respect and connection, where the richness of ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives are all harnessed to create the business value and the overall success. And I don't know if you have noticed it all, probably in the last year, most of the bigger companies out there are hiring diversity and inclusion people right now. I don't know if you've seen that, but that was a position that certainly didn't even exist. You know, I'm a safety person. Back when I graduated from college in 2001, I would open the State Journal, because the internet wasn't really that popular back then, and there'd be like maybe one safety job. You know, now there's a million safety jobs, and then we weren't really talking about a lot of this HR type stuff, you know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I think the Me Too movement probably kicked things off the most, and then bullying, especially in the schools. We insure about 150 schools. But then, you know, think about like George Floyd, and you guys all have law enforcement, these officer-involved shootings, and, you know, those types of situations. Now diversity and inclusion are so much more prevalent as an actual position, a standalone position. Iowa County is one of the clients I work with, and they have been so proactive. And, you know, if you think about it, they're kind of rural too. You know, they're in Dodgeville's their county seat, not too far out of Madison, but Dodgeville, they have a diversity and inclusion work group. And they actually brought in a transgender attorney from Iowa to present. They're doing a lot of lunch and learns and things like that, and it was so advantageous for their group of folks. And they were like, you know, one of the trendsetters to do this. Like I said, everybody's in the counties is doing so many different things now, from how you're recruiting people to how you're educating your people to how you're showing your value to your people. And we're just going to see more and more of this. But there's a lot of really neat things happening. It's not just happening at the huge Fortune 500 companies or tech companies in Madison. It's happening at the counties as well, which is great to see. So if we think about the difference in between the diversity and inclusion, diversity is simply a representation of many different types of people, genders, races, abilities, religions, so on and so forth. It focuses really on the difference, and it's referred to as the mix. Inclusion, then, is a deliberate act of welcoming diversity and creating an environment where the different kinds of people can thrive and succeed. And I kind of alluded to that in the beginning. You know, even though I have some real strong suits, I have some weaknesses. So if we hired a bunch of people that were all the exact same as me, we wouldn't be as strong of a work group as if we hired me and 20 of you, because we all have different experiences and different backgrounds. And if we went to the next layer out, you know, and hired more diversity and more diversity and more diversity, the team's just going to get stronger and stronger and more capable. And I mean, it'd be limitless with what they could do with the ideas and the education and the experience. So really inclusion then is just making that mix work. You know, we want to have all these great people join us. Then we want to figure out how can we have everybody work together harmoniously and get the best out of everybody. If you don't feel comfortable at work, you're not going to speak up in a meeting. If somebody gives you the stink eye every time you say something, or you don't feel comfortable because that person said a snide comment to you or made a remark about your religion, about your ethnicity, you're probably not going to be as, willing to share or to get involved. So again, we want to try to keep that environment as respectful as we can so we can make the mix work and have everybody be feeling really good about their situation. So diversity is what you have, inclusion is what you do. And so we got to make sure that we're trying to do that, having a good diverse group, good team, whatever that team might be, whatever that department might be. So some best practices when it comes to diversity, we really have to have a leadership commitment. Having these extra positions, having time for lunch and learns, having time to bring in training, there's a cost to all of that. When I come in and do your training for your folks, if it's a 2-hour session, say on average an employee makes $20 an hour. Well, fully loaded with benefits, it's probably more like $40 an hour. And if we take up 2 hours of their time, that's $80 there times 600 employees. Do the math. That's a huge investment for the county. But theoretically, if they learn stuff during that training and they do the right things and people are more productive and happy after that and they're not getting in trouble and having lawsuits and being mean to other people, that was money well spent. But we need to make sure that we have the leadership commitment, that you guys understand why we want to do these things. You're doing the right things and encouraging the county as a whole to follow these right avenues and paths and do all the good things for everybody out there. We need to have effective communication and be transparent about what we're doing, equitable employment practices, recruitment outreach, which it sounds like the county's doing a great job on, learning and career development, coaching and mentoring. Again, if we can get people here, let's keep them here. They already are familiar with the county. They're already good at their job. They already know their coworkers. Let's keep building on that. Early conflict resolution, so we can try to minimize whatever's happening out there and not minimize it, but try to mitigate it so that we have less of an issue going forward. And then offer that flexible work culture too. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. People are comfortable with Zoom. I don't know if you've seen some of the recent surveys that have come out there. They're like, would you rather have $30,000 more a year or be able to work from home? What are people saying? Yeah, they don't care about the money, which is good. We don't have a ton more money to give them anyway. But maybe we could figure out a situation where they telecommute a couple days a week. Or maybe, maybe there's something. Like from a law enforcement standpoint, if you think about all the years that we had to send the deputies, to bring somebody back from a county 100 miles away just to say we're going to delay this trial, and then they take them all the way back up there. Wouldn't that be nice to do that all Zoom? That'd save a lot of money in gas and per diem and people's time and safety and all these other things. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this flexible culture going forward. So there's a lot of different benefits of this workplace diversity and inclusion. Improve understanding of the people that you're working with, that you're working around, that you're working for. A work environment that allows everyone to reach their full potential. Multiple perspectives on problem solving, better performance outcomes, increased productivity from the employees, retention rates, all the things that we've already hit on over and over and over. But at the end of the day, more than anything, it's just really the right thing to do. So again, you guys are the leaders. You're the head of the county. So we need you to communicate and practice this commitment to diversity and inclusion and reinforce the diverse work employment practices, including the diversity of thought. Practice the constructive conflict management, work on educating the business's values of diversity and inclusion, and mentor and coach all employees. And maybe you're not doing it directly yourselves, but you're working with HR, and you're working with the department heads, and you're leveraging resources, whether that's time or money or something like that, for that to happen. As far as the managers go, if we have any managers in here, including the county board supervisors, lead by example, respect people and their differences, create that welcoming environment, incorporate diversity into the policies, the strategic plans, learning early conflict resolutions that we just talked about, really empowering the employees, and more than anything, just walk the walk. Make sure that you're doing the right things too, because you are a representation of the county. And that's when you're here at the meeting, the county board meeting on Monday night, or maybe when you're joining us in La Crosse at the county conference in September. No matter where you are, if you're online for social media, you're always a representation of the county. Everything that you say, everything that you do, I'm in the exact same boat. But I think it makes me accountable and be a better person, honestly, because I feel like, would I say that normally? Should I think that way? Why am I thinking that way? And we'll touch on that a little bit too as we go forward here. So So our employees, there's a lot of ways that they can promote diversity, and we've talked a lot about all this stuff already. It is a little bit redundant, but usually you have to say things like, what, do they say 7 times before people remember them? So I say them over and over and over. But really, we're just striving for excellence with all our people here. We want them to be sensitive to others. We want to make sure that people are talking about their differences, that they feel comfortable, that we're trying to accommodate folks if they have some type of accommodation that's needed, that we're not stereotyping, that we're following the policies, that we're following the procedures, that we're doing the things that we need to do. So skills and strategies that would work for everybody, recognizing those differences, building your self-awareness. Don't assume your interpretation is correct, which that can be hard to do sometimes. Share your experiences honestly if you feel comfortable. Practice appropriate communication. Give time and attention when communicating. And try not to judge or evaluate folks, and that can be hard as well. And when we talk about celebrating diversity, again, it's just capitalizing on the uniqueness, having people take pride in themselves, welcoming people as individuals, enjoying their similarities as well as their differences. I thoroughly enjoy meeting people and talking to them. I like to know other people. I grew up in a pretty small bubble. I grew up in Elroy, Wisconsin. I don't know if any of you know where that is. I went to Platteville. That's where I went to college. I've moved around a little bit. I spent 6 years, though, living in Lafarge, Wisconsin. I live outside Laval, Wisconsin now. I mean, my perspective on the world is not real huge. You know, I lived in Chicago for a little bit. I went directly from Lafarge to Chicago. That was like, oh my God, you know. But there's a lot of life out there. There's a lot of world out there. There's a lot of people that are a lot different than us. And a lot of them are a lot more interesting than us, you know. It's nice to talk to those people and to learn all those neat things. So we want to try to celebrate as much as possible because we know what'll happen if we don't. So then the last part I have here is just on bias a little bit. We touched on that already. As I said, we all know that we're biased. And it's tough. You know, I'll give you an example. So like I said, I grew up in Elroy. My dad retired from Fort McCoy, as did my grandpa that was a World War II vet. Do you think I was born in 1979, graduated from high school in 97. Do you think I routinely heard things around the house that I should probably never use in general conversation with people? I mean, whether it was just an idea or a thought or a word. And the world was a lot different back then too, right? You know, it was a different time. And that definitely shaped who I was. I spent almost, you know, like I said, I just turned 42, so I spent almost equal amount of time living at my parents' house as I've been out on my own. And how hard is it to outgrow the things that we've grown up? You know, a lot of times I open my mouth and I hear my parents come out of my mouth because you grew up in those environments. You hear those things, you say those things over and over and over. So we know we all have bias. And that's okay. You know, we can all feel however you want to feel. You can think whatever you want to think. I'm not here today to change your mind or to make you think a certain way or say a certain thing or feel a certain way. All I want you to do is be respectful and think about, you know, well, why are you thinking those things or why are you feeling those things if they're things that maybe aren't as great as they could be. So when you think about unconscious bias, they're thoughts or feelings that you're not aware that influence your judgments. They're rooted in your preferences for or against something. Your preference may lead you to having a favorable or unfavorable bias. So you might think everybody from my town's fantastic. Well, I'm from Elroy, so I don't think that. I don't know if anybody's been there. But some people do. Or maybe you see somebody's resume come in and you're like, oh, we definitely need to hire that person. They went to my high school or they went to my college. Well, they could have went somewhere else too and been just as, you know, able to do the job or capable as somebody else. So we also need to think about unfavorable bias. So maybe as a supervisor, we're like, geez, I don't want to hire any of those millennials because they just can't perform. Is that fair to all the millennials? Are all the millennials the same? You know, so that could be an unfavorable bias. And it could go the other way too. Maybe somebody's like, I don't want to hire anybody from the baby boomer generation because they're too old. You know, they're not going to do a good job anymore. Or from whatever generation. You know, you can say anything you want about any one of them. I'm not picking on one or another. But the point is here, we all have conscious and we all have unconscious bias. And that's okay. And so why do we have it? It evolved that way because unconscious bias are necessary. Organizing information into categories is a hardwired mental shortcut which allowed our ancestors to quickly differentiate between friend or foe. You know, everything that we do, you know, came from somewhere at some time. So back in the day, this was something that was helpful for us. And maybe it is still today, depending on what the situation is. So to understand our unconscious bias, we must learn when they are most likely to occur. Unconscious bias happen automatically and are triggered by our brain making quick judgments and opinions of people and or situations. They occur when your preference toward or against something impacts your actions. These behaviors most frequently happen under pressure, multitasking, or simply being in a hurry. And I call this rat mode. Like, I think we all know things that we're good at and we all know that we have things that we could be better at, our opportunities for improvement. And I think most days we all do a pretty good job of, trying to be consciously improving the things that we can improve upon. But when you're working short-staffed, or you're under stressed, or you're putting in a 14-hour day when you're out there being a snowplow driver or in law enforcement, or when somebody didn't show up for their shift at the nursing home or something along those lines, do you think it's easier to say something you didn't maybe mean to say, or to judge somebody inappropriately, or, have a feeling that maybe isn't the best representation of who you are? That stuff definitely happens. So when we talked about where they came from, we talked about it being hardwired into us. So Freud stated, I don't know if anybody had Psychology 101 in college or in high school, that they have the largest influence in our behavior. We all have a background which consists of many characteristics such as age, gender, personality, education. Our background and our life experiences shape our preferences towards or against something, which I think is pretty easy to understand. So think about a significant in life event that you've went through. Maybe it was a negative situation. Maybe it was a great situation. Maybe it was a scary situation. Maybe, it was a learning situation. If you think about that particular event, how did this event shape your value or your view on the world? How did it affect the way that you perceive others? How did it affect the way you interact with others? So your story really does inform your bias. And we could spend a lot of time going through here, but in the interest of time, we won't. Just, think about why you think the way you think. What has shaped your life to make you have these feelings or these thoughts about different situations, different people, different groups of people, whatever the case might be. So oftentimes your unconscious bias appears favorable towards people who have the same similar characteristics as you, such as your culture or your religion or your race. Your unconscious bias usually appears unfavorable towards people who are different than you or who are unlike you. And we'll see that. If I do a group training, and we'll do that here in Trempealeau County again, I like to have people from all different departments come in, that way we can try to get as many people trained as possible, because I know there's different shifts and, different crews and things like that. Do we tend to gravitate towards people that are most like us? Or people that we know? How often are people like, oh, I want to go sit with all those people I don't know? I do, because I like to talk to other people, but most people don't, right? And then the next day they're going to come right back and sit in the exact same spot they were in the day before, even though they're pretty comfortable with the people now. They've been in there for a day, they've interacted with folks. So most people aren't out there necessarily trying to meet other people and learn about other people and doing other things. So that is part of our unconscious bias. And iceberg is a good example. We use icebergs a lot in safety. A lot of times we talk about accidents and how much the cost of accidents, but it also is applicable here. If you think about the unconscious bias as the bottom of the iceberg below the water, we may not always know that they're there, but it's important to acknowledge that they do exist, so that you aren't unintentionally discriminating against somebody, or in the heat of a moment, or really engaging county board meetings, say something that we shouldn't say, or do something that we shouldn't do. Do you think we have it here in the county, unconscious bias? Do you think it has negative effects in the county? It happens everywhere, and you guys, like I said, you're good people just like all my other county clients are, but it happens just because that's life. So we just got to, again, try to be as cognizant of it as we can. So all of us need to bring our unconscious bias to the workplace, or all of us are bringing our unconscious bias to the workplace. On any given day, we can interact with many different individuals that have different thoughts or feelings from our own. And it's important to recognize how unconscious bias can impact our interactions with our coworkers, the clients, and the community. And that's the hard part, too. It's not like you work in a regular environment, or your employees work in a regular environment where they just interact with their coworkers every day. Your folks are interacting with the public. They're interacting with not only them as clients, but then, they can't even go to Quick Trip if they have a county badge on without somebody feeling like they can say something to them. They work with vendors like myself, the UPS guy. There's just so many people that are in and out of these county buildings. I just shared an article with a couple of my coworkers over the weekend. One of my Vernon County highway guys was turning around a dump truck in a road. I don't know if anybody saw this. And homeowner came out with an AR because he wasn't happy that the dump truck turned around in his driveway. And I was married to a civil engineer for 12 years. You know how many times he had guns pulled on him when he was out there trying to do right-of-way projects, or looking at the land or doing the survey or whatever for the DOT? Not everybody's the same as us, and that situation could have gone very differently had that guy, the county employee, not had a level head and been able to talk his way out of that situation and get out of there. And that's the thing, it's a whole different world out there for everybody involved. So we just got to really try to make sure that we are being respectful, and that we're paying attention to things, and that we're following policies, and we're following procedures, and that we're interacting with people in the best possible way, and that we're conscientious of how we feel and how we think. So biases do influence our behavior and decision-making in the workplace. At work, you may have a preference towards working with individuals from your department, or someone from your hometown, or a person of the same gender, which we already kind of talked about these things. They may show up unconsciously. Maybe, like we talked about, people that aren't from your department or not from your hometown. When your preferences impact another person or group, you're most likely demonstrating a bias, which is pretty easy to understand there. So, again, interacting with customers, working with the coworkers, making decisions. Failing to recognize unconscious bias during any of these processes can hold back an employee and or the organization's success. And there's so many different studies out there on all these different things. Oops. So when we are diminishing ideas from folks, when we are diminishing their beliefs because they represent a different position or different views, or really what we're doing is we're limiting ourselves and we're limiting the county. So we want to make sure that we're seeking understanding, and that's a good way to acknowledge the ideas or beliefs of other people, as well as be more self-aware of our own thoughts. So here's some questions to ask yourself that can help increase your understanding. If you know that you think a certain thing about a certain group of people, or religion, or political affiliation, or whatever it might be, or, you know, and it's going to be a whole other world too, like with this COVID stuff coming back to work, and people that have gotten their vaccinations and they haven't, you know, it's a whole different ballgame than when we left a year and a half ago. You know, if you're thinking something that maybe you don't think is the best way to be thinking, ask yourself, well, why am I thinking it? You know, is there a past experience that's impacting my current decision? Is the past experience applicable for how the situation currently in front of me is playing out? You know, usually if you start having these internal dialogues with yourself, you'll get some type of clarity one way or another. But you should at least, again, try to understand yourself and why you feel the way that you feel and think the way that you think, because that'll, I think, pay a lot of dividends as you're working with people, interacting with people going forward. So there's a bunch of different behaviors that'll also help overcome your unconscious bias. The biggest thing is just be self-aware and be aware of others. That's the first step. Be aware that biases exist, that we all have them, and that they're rooted in your preference for or against something. You're not a bad person if you have bias. Like I said, we all have them. Manage your behavior, and the only way we can manage it, again, is to be self-aware. If you tend to find yourself doing something, saying something that you shouldn't, you know, take note of that, figure out what made you do it, what the situation was, what you can do differently going forward. And it's really the job of all of us to be champions of our core values, which should be dignity and respect. And build cultural awareness. And I think we will see more of that. I used Iowa County as an example, but there's many counties out there. I don't know if any of you were able to take advantage of any of the WCA calls, Wisconsin Counties Association calls. Over COVID, they had a lot of really great diversity presentations, inclusion presentations, just like workplace culture presentations. I think we're going to see a lot more of those. I hope we do. I learned a lot of wonderful things. Obviously, a lot of it started out like in Milwaukee County or Dane County, some of those larger counties, a little bit more diverse counties, but you know, it's everywhere now, and I'm so thankful that it is, because we really need this kind of education. We need this kind of help, I think. And there's a lot of different tips out there. We went through a lot of these earlier. Just really when you think about interacting with your coworkers, interacting with your patients, with your customers, with your community members, think about how you feel when you're interacting with them. Think about what triggers you. Think about when you could be doing something or saying something that isn't the best representation of you or of the county. Think about what's triggering those things and what you could do differently going forward. Because really at the end of the day, our whole goal here is to treat people with respect, treat people with dignity, and create a bias-free workplace. We know we have these things. We need to be self-aware, and we need to understand how to manage them, and that's going to have a huge impact with interacting with folks. Because it's not the old days where you're just going to get a slap on the wrist. You know, like you could lose your job. You could put the county in a bad situation for doing or saying something that you shouldn't be saying. So I went right about an hour exactly. So I kind of sped through it to try to get done for you, because I know you don't want to sit here. It's a nice night. But does anybody have any questions about any of these types of things? I'm happy to hear personnel committees working on so many of these things. I think that COVID was a nice chance to start looking at some of this, but unfortunately we had so many other things going on we were trying to understand, you know, during that, because everything there was brand new. But I think we'll see a lot more education and outreach and emphasis on these programs going forward. Is there anything that keeps you guys up at night related to any of these topics, or, major glaring things that, you know, I can take note of that when Krista and I are working together, I can say, we should move this up the priority list, or is that how personnel committee works entirely? Is that how you guys function it?
Well, I was thinking about things that keep me up at night. Well, he's the chair over there.
He's the vice chair over there. Yes, we've been dealing with a number of issues over the last year or two, and we continue, like Jeannie said, to try to look at policies as often as we can. We will be looking at these policies in the future.
Good. And, something else that we can do, when your old sheriff was here, we pay for Lexapol for the county, too.
Pay for what?
Lexapol, that's a sheriff's department-specific program. We've paid about $100,000 for that in the years that Trempealeau has been using it. When Sheriff him and his department put together his procedures last time, we went through all those and looked them over. So we can do that for any procedures you guys have, personnel, transportation, whatever. Have our attorneys look at them, too, which is a nice, just kind of a perk that's part of the county mutual. You don't have to pay for that. And Chris and I have been talking about, she's a relatively new person to that position, but, there's so many other folks, too. We've had so much turnover in our other counties. They have that really strong group, that WPALRA group, which is the Personnel Labor Relations Association, and WACPAD, that's another Wisconsin County Public Administration, this type of group. Everybody's struggling with these exact same things right now, and we're all just trying to do the right things. And so no sense recreating the wheel, and we work with so many different counties too, like I said, 52 of them, plus all these cities and schools and villages. If you're hung up on something, and you're like, we don't know what to do here, or we have a question on this, reach out to one of those groups, reach out to us. If nothing else, we can give you 4 examples. That's how I do a lot of my stuff. I don't sit and write all this stuff from scratch. I don't have that kind of time or expertise, but I pull really good parts of other things and look and see what other people are doing. And I bet there's going to be a lot of these topics at the county conference coming up in La Crosse, too. And you guys are so close to La Crosse. If you haven't gotten your hotel, we were talking about that today, I think the hotel sold out in 2 days or something.
I got the rooms, and we're going to announce tonight to make sure you get your registrations in. So.
Yeah, because I bet there'll be a lot of this type of programming there, and then, like the legislative exchange and all these things, that you guys can come to. Take advantage of them, because it's just for your benefit. We're here to help you. But I'm here, Krista's here. I hope I didn't offend anybody. If I did, I certainly didn't mean to. These are just kind of hard topics to talk about sometimes, but I think you guys really are truly doing a really great job here. Every time I don't see Trempealeau County come across my desk in the morning in a bad situation, that always is a good day for me and a good day for you guys as well. So thank you for letting me come up for that evening.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yep.
Next item,
Switches.
George,
Turn the lights on.
we can continue right on because it's still regular meeting time, and we'll go to item 8B, which is the COVID committee update. Sally and Deb.
Sheriff? I think you wanted to be part of this too, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah, you did.
What did you?
Barb, could you please come up here? Oh, wow, yeah, that part. Yeah.
I think Ron has to sign.
I don't think anybody up here has either.
Oh, okay.
Okay. These are today's numbers, Barb. I will let you do that one last time. But 16 months ago, our nation, our world was plunged into a public health crisis the likes we'd never seen. And we, as a small county, like people everywhere, were trying to figure out how we would respond. In the first few days, there was a lot of confusion. I knew this was going to happen. There was the strong, quiet voice that came forward and was starting to guide us as we tried to figure out how we were going to navigate these unprecedented waters. The analogy was made many times that we were building the plane while we were flying it. Throughout the year, as the COVID committee was formed, and we began to meet. At first it was a few times a week, then it was every week, and then it was bi-weekly, and then it became monthly. The one thing that was always there was the numbers report. She would update us on that. She would update us on best practices. As we figured out the policies and the best practices to keep the employees of this county safe in the county buildings, to keep the public who was coming into our buildings safe, and how to keep people on a steady path going forward without panic and without fear as much as possible. We all had different moments of concern and fear and worry as the different things would pop up. But the one thing that was always constant, the one thing that never changed, was Barb's quiet, strong voice reassuring us that this was something that she understood, and this was something that she would help us with, and that we weren't alone making decisions in a void. people will never know the hard work that she put in, the hours that she was here late, the hours that she didn't sleep that she could have, the vacation days she didn't take that she should have, the health impact that this crisis took on her, the death threats, the threats against her family, people calling her names, people accusing her of things. And she just kept going. Personally, there were times I wanted to lash out on her behalf, and she was just like she always is. She was calm, she was quiet, she was staying focused on her mission and her goal, which was to bring our county through a pandemic, the likes which we had never seen. In a time when there was so much uncertainty and so much instability, Barb was stable, Barb was certain, and Barb was that voice that helped us get through the questions that we didn't have. I can't count the number of times that if she said, I have this, or I can't be there for that, and then she would send somebody down with the numbers. Where are we at? She'd explain things, she'd take calls. She did things that were beyond her job description. In the early days, when we didn't know how much we had for personal protective gear, we didn't know our frontline workers, our deputies, our social workers, all these folks who had what, where's the equipment, what do we need, how do we protect them? And Barb said, I have things, I have what we need. And she began to procure, and she began to share, and she began to disseminate, and gave masks. And every time we have a meeting, we have a PPE update, which we find out how much do we have on stock as we continue to grow our stockpile. And after Jeremy, who is the caretaker of the PPE, would give his report, Barb will always pipe in and she'd go, okay, and I also have masks in the closet in the health department if anybody needs it. She coordinated testing, she coordinating vaccination. She led her department in something that so many other departments struggled with. And while we saw people in other public health agencies around the nation quitting and leaving and giving up, she didn't. She stayed. And we can look to her strong leadership as evidenced by the fact that the people in her department stayed too. And we know that we saw her in December, the county board meeting where the attacks were personal and they were against her and they were loud and they were frequent. And people expressed concern about that. I reached out and said, please tell me somebody has eyes on Barb. And people did. People were all equally concerned for her. And she just stayed there, and she was quiet, and she did not react. She didn't take a bad situation and make it worse, even though it was very personal at her. And that, to me, was a true example of the kind of leader you want when the world's falling apart, because she held it together. And I want you to know, Barb, that you are a general, and you led the Army and the public health in this county, and it is very much appreciated. If it hasn't been said before, it's very much appreciated. You did an amazing, phenomenal thing, and I will continue to be in awe of it. I think Barb...
And a wonderful Army.
I think some of the folks who were there in the beginning have a few things they wanted to say.
Well, Sally, you took a lot of the things I was going to say. It was so confusing at the beginning of COVID because each department knew what work they had to do. They had to figure out how they were going to do it in uncertain times. And the really beauty of what Barb did was she didn't come in and say, I'm in charge, this is how you're going to do it. She just came in and said, how can I help you? What can I give you? We've still got stuff from H1N1. Can you use it? Her staff needed PPE just as much as my staff did that had to go out and make sure kids were safe or provide injections for individuals that had mental health medication needs. And she laid it out there. We shared it. We figured it out. There was none of this ego. There was no ego involved. And because Barb focused on what was important, and that was keeping everybody safe and keeping everybody healthy. And it just made it so easy to work with you, Barb. And you did that all the way through COVID. You made it easy for us during unprecedented times. And I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership.
Well, thank you for the kind words.
So not much more can be said, I don't think. But one thing I will say is that anybody in here who is a politician by the nature of our job found out how polarizing COVID was, really, and how evenly divided our county was. And when the issues would come out from Madison, the new orders would be handed down, and the governor was recommending we do this, and the Department of Health was recommending we do that. And the fear started going across my desk as how am I going to tell these people that they can't open their business or that they can't go out and golf on a golf course. And the orders that were handed down went across Barb's desk immediately as well, and she was quick to call me to assure me that we were going to do this with level heads. We were going to we're not going to go in with the iron fist and close businesses down. We were going to find a way to make it work. And she always reassured me that we as a county were not going to be the bad guy, and we were still going to make it work. We were going to get through this pandemic. She reassured me more than I could reassure anybody that we were going to get through this. I didn't have to call her. She called me before I could call her to fill me in on what's going on. If I did send her an email or I did send her a text message or I left a voice message, it didn't take more than an hour and she'd call me back. A lot of times it's easy to dodge controversial topics. She didn't. She grabbed the bull by the horns and she ran with it and she made it work. And I guess she made my job a lot easier in these last 14 months, just like she did Sally and Deb and anybody else she worked with. So on that stance, I guess I want to thank you, Barb, for that kind of cooperation and for the service that you've done for Trempealeau County. A lot of people in this county will never realize what you did. So with that, I congratulate you on your retirement, and I hope you look forward to some calmer times. So.
It's nice to give a hug rather than a
Vaccinated. Yeah, please, and give your last COVID report, please.
The last few meetings I've been hadn't had to breathe and say here. Our daily rate is 2.38. We have 5 open cases right now. Our daily rate is 2.38. We have 5 active cases. Unfortunately, it has been a trying year. I'll confess to that. Unfortunately, during that year, we have lost 45 members of our community to COVID. All I can tell you is I have a wonderful team. We couldn't have done it without them. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Okay.
I guess the actual COVID report is, I think we're still the same. I think, Deb, you have a little bit of information about the financial thing?
Yeah, Paul and I were just on a call today with Integrity Group. We have submitted our first FEMA request. They don't have any more questions for us at this point, so that's hurdle number 1. We're just waiting for them to finish reviewing it and send us a check. So that's where we're at, and Paul's already getting ready to, once the computer system gets back up, start working on the second submission.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item 5B is Samuel's Group. I see Kurt's here. Kind of bring us an update of what's going on? Oh.
You expect me to follow that?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes here. Just kind of want to give you an update on the project. As you can see, it's changed from last month when we talked. The clearing and grubbing has been done. The soils have been addressed in regards to compaction, and they're being brought up to the elevation, and you can see the footing lines are starting to be put in place. There are submittals that are in process for reinforcing rod, and concrete should be taking place here in the next couple of weeks. We're working on some coordinates with the designers to make sure that we can get those things in line and those things in order. Last month, when I shared with you, we were going to target getting bid package 2 out this last week on the 12th. I've delayed that a bit because there's been some questions internally about some of the systems, and I wanted to make sure that the design team was able to share or get some presentations to members of the county here so that we understand what you're getting in regards to some technology components that are there. And not all of those questions have been answered. And we're going to have a couple more meetings here just to clean that up before we put bid pack 2 out. I'm not real quick to rush bid pack 2 out either with some of the pricing that's there. As I start to see, we have had some drops in some of those areas over the course of the last couple weeks. So I'm not overly concerned about the delay. I want to make sure that we get everything addressed before we have that bid pack 2 hit the street. So there is some wisdom behind that, and in my opinion, of being able to make sure that that's done. But I do want to target that after this next week, I would like to see bid pack 2 out on the street. We're probably going to give 3 weeks for bidders to be able to bid that project, and then we'll work with the property committee in regards to selection and recommendation. Update on the street utility coordination. The city has contacted me, and we had some coordination in regards to what was happening in Hobson Street. We've made some adjustments in regards to where that utility work is shown in their rework of Hobson or in our project. And we're going to make some changes in regards to some of the language in the agreement between the city and the county. It's no change in dollars. It's just a matter of where the work is being done. So just be aware of that. I think Hobson Street, SEH is working on that with the city, and that will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks for bid for that project as well. Do want to talk about the Building Oversight Committee. As most of you are aware, the Building Oversight Committee led us through the process of, do you need a project? What does the project look like? And the Building Oversight Committee was established by the board. And now that we're into the process of finalizing the design, the court system requires that there is a committee that's assigned to oversee the security and the design component of the court system itself. When the design is complete, then that committee can be retracted. And what we will propose to you coming in August, and we'll be talking about this at the property meeting, the Building Oversight Committee will meet at least one more time so that we can finalize that design and before it gets out on the street. And then we'll be looking back to you as the board to be able to take that Building Oversight Committee and move that back to property oversight. And I want to make sure that we do have a public, the proper public thank you for all those members of the Building Oversight Committee, and still have them involved in the project as we move forward, but just a little heads up on where we are with that. The approval that I just talked to you about, there is a requirement from the court administration to sign off on those documents. We do have a meeting coming up this week for them to look at some of the final components related to the courts. It's not just walls and bricks and mortar. That is infrastructure in regards to some of the communication and the technology that's going to be in there. So we're going to be having a meeting on that this week. The DOCO approval is the same thing. I have spoke with the DOC inspector, and there's just 2 items that he wants clarification on that we will be getting to him this week, but we're real close in regards to DOC approval. So a slight delay in the timing, but I will take full accountability for that. It was a decision that I made. Didn't want to put that out there any sooner in regards to making sure that we have everything that's covered on that end. So, any questions? I know Tim's got some stuff that he wants to share with you, and I can kind of help and assist with that if after he's done giving you that update. But no questions for me?
Nope. Tim, you are on that.
See, I knew I couldn't follow Barb.
Kurt, there's one thing. I did get in the mail today the temporary construction easement for Hobson Street.
Okay.
From the city.
Okay. Maybe send that to me,
I will.
if you can send it to me for review. Okay.
And a check for $2.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that to pay for the stamp?
Affected property owner or something.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Affected property owner, the county?
Yeah.
Oh. So we got double our money back on what we paid for the last time.
Oh, hey, that's right. We
Hello.
paid $1 for it, we got it back.
Okay, I did a little handout, so
Did you hand it out?
I did. It must not have got the dais.
Must not have what?
I just wanted to fill everybody in on the full board. I've already done a presentation for Property Committee and for Exec Finance, but it's part of the building project, so I wanted everybody to be aware of what I'm dealing with and what I'm trying to do. We're currently facing some challenges in IT. The most recent one is currently that our data server hasn't been accessible since last Tuesday. We had a power outage of the most bizarre nature in our computer room. I'm really looking forward to having a data center with good power and all the things that we need to run it right. But yeah, so 2 racks basically just stopped getting power, and the batteries failed because the generator didn't kick on because it wasn't the whole building. So the 911 system was one of the racks, and they were able to bring that up that night, and then we brought all the servers back, but 3 of them didn't come back up. And the one that houses all the data for courthouse staff has refused to boot since last week. We worked with HP. It's out of warranty. So it's been a slow slog to get some attention, and then the part was supposed to arrive today and a technician tomorrow, but that's now pushed back to Wednesday. So some of the department heads that you may be speaking with are a little cranky because they're having data issues, not able to get to stuff. Anyhow, we're still catching up post-COVID in my department. We're behind schedule on a lot of projects. We have security has become ridiculous. We've received over 74 alerts that pertain to us since March 1st. Every one of them needs investigation, and every one of them needs action. So it's chewing up a lot of our time. The public sector's being attacked right now. I'm sure you're all hearing about it in the media. We didn't used to be a target because who cared about government? But now we're definitely a target of convenience. They can go out to the dark web and they can buy ransomware as a service, and then for $250 you can hold a dispatch center for ransom. It's just disturbing. So we've begun to address that, and the county board approved funds for us to get some help from some consultants to tighten up our security as was specified in last year's security evaluation that we had done as part of the HAVA security subgrant for the elections. The other problem that the Property Committee and Executive Finance Committee helped us out on was to get support for out-of-warranty servers. There are third parties that can provide that. And all I needed to do was bring a bid back to this month's Property Committee meeting. Unfortunately, my out-of-warranty server died 2 weeks before I could buy the support. So just really, really bad luck. Went 4 years of taking risks, and now all of a sudden we got bit right before we solved the problem. So with the Justice Center coming on board, we're trying to get as secure as we possibly can and trying to get our staff caught up on all our projects so that we can provide the level of service we're going to be needing to provide during the process of this new building and then once it actually goes live. The new data center and technology for the Justice Center will include state-of-the-art facilities, security, cooling, redundant power. Those are things we're all looking forward to, and that's already built into the budget. And the designers have taken a lot of care to pay attention to that. We're pretty happy with the consultants that have been secured by Venture and Samuel's group. We're getting secure data closets, cabling, Wi-Fi access points, and patch panels are included in that. Cameras, security equipment, peripherals, monitors, speakers, elements that are going to make the building more functional are all being included in the elements that you see when you see the reports coming in from the contractors that are helping us with this process. What we don't know about in the budget is the part that I need to speak to you about, and that's the network backbone, which would be the elements in the networking itself that allow more data to move through it. Right now, we are at a level of network capability that is limited and isn't really future-proof, but we're in an older facility and we're not really expanding. But with this new Justice Center, there's a lot of cameras coming online, there's a lot of technology coming online. We want to make sure that the equipment we have can talk to each other at the speed it needs to. So a network backbone upgrade is got to be a part of this project. I don't see any other way around it. Now, what's been built into the budget, we really don't know for sure on the switching and backbone components, because when they put together proposals for jails and facilities that they do work with, there's different levels of networking required, and they probably, you can probably confirm this, they have a baseline that they figure out in the size of your building and what you're doing with your building. I'm not sure that what I'm asking for is going to be within that number for them. So I'm asking the board, not tonight, but I'm asking the board to consider carving out some funds to make sure that we can get that piece taken care of so that the new building will have an infrastructure that is future-proof and ready to go when we start the process, rather than adding it later on. The other piece is a data center. I've been saying from day one as this project has moved forward and been very impressed with the thought that the board has given to each of the elements as we go along. And I've repeated it over and over again. I just don't think that I was able to get through because technology is boring and difficult and not a lot of people get it. But we do not plan to take all the equipment we have sitting down in the basement in the south wing and pick it up and move it across into the new data center. We would like to repurpose that equipment as a redundant archive backup space. And we would like a solution that allows the staff we have to maintain the systems going forward. And it involves something called virtualization. I'm not going to give you a course on virtualization. I'm sure you all want to get out of this meeting at some point tonight. But what it does is it solves a lot of problems for a small department like our own. It allows us to take components that allows us to virtualize the entire server application database setup for us. And then it modularizes it so that it's constantly redundant. I can move systems from one to the other, or if one fails, it automatically is running on another one. If we need to roll out patches, you can take a snapshot of that particular server, and then you can put your patch on and then test it, and if it fails, you just go back to the snapshot. It takes minutes. It doesn't require me to set up a fancy system and spend hours trying to figure out if it works or not. So it allows our staff to provide a solution that's way more redundant than what we're currently dealing with. As an example, this data server problem I have, if a system had failed because of a power failure, that data server would have automatically been running on a different part of the system. We wouldn't have had to do anything. Wouldn't have had the outage. And the staff has done a great job getting through this particular server being down, but trust me, if it was the finance system with payroll, or if it was the sheriff's public safety system, I probably wouldn't be here tonight. I'm not sure if they'd burn us down or what would happen. So we're lucky that we got hit in a way that only affected one part of the operation. Important as it is, we really have dodged some bullets here. So we want to try and make a redundant system that our staff can maintain and sustain in the years to come. The number for something like that is definitely not included in the budgeting process from the building perspective. I'm estimating about $200,000 to execute that. And I'll be working with the property committee, is who I report to, and then with the exec finance committee. They will be making decisions as to how they want to pursue that, if they want to bring it back to the full board, if they want to make it part of the budget process, included in the Justice Center project. That's for you to decide, but I wanted to put this forward so that you understood what we're looking for. I did do some numbers. I put together a 10-year budget where one of the possible solutions was adding staff, adding a security technician or something of that order to help us keep up with the work. The first problem I have with that is that's not a panacea. I've got a team of 4 people that are really good at what they do. They love working for the county. They work together well. You never know what's going to happen when you add somebody into that mix. It might mess up the working dynamics of the group or irritate people, or who knows. Plus, we may have to come back to you later and add another staff person because we didn't solve the problem. Plus, over 10 years, it would cost $1.3 million more than buying the equipment I'm proposing and just finding a way to make it maintainable by the group we have. Doing nothing also doesn't work from our perspective because we'll end up spending more, and we will still have the problems where if something fails, then I have to order a $20,000 server, and I have to wait for it to arrive, and we can spend weeks going around, and it slows the organization down. So the solution we're proposing is something that's going to make us redundant, more productive, more effective, and then we can maintain it. And as the needs of the county change, it's modular. So if you need to add more disk or add more memory, you don't have to buy a whole new system, you just add a component. It provides flexibility for the organization going forward. That's basically, in a nutshell, what I wanted the board to be aware of what I'm working towards. The committees that I spoke of earlier, they will be the ones digging deeper into this, but anytime you wish, you're welcome to come down and visit me in my office. I'd love to explain to you what I'm angling for. One-on-one, if you want to learn more about back-end system nerd stuff, feel free to knock on my door.
I have a question. With what you're proposing, it doesn't.
Thank you. They turned it on for me. Will that enhance the security so that we'd be less likely to be victims of ransomware, or is that just random crap that can happen to anybody?
In some ways, yes. There are ways to enhance the security with the existing solutions we have, but then I have to buy a server or I have to buy an appliance. With this, I just spin up a new server right on the system. I'm already paying for the licensing from Microsoft. We just add a server that decrypts all the encrypted emails coming in and then analyzes the packets and spits it out. Instead of having to buy another server, I've already paid for the system that would allow that to happen. So in some ways, it would be beneficial, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tim, it sounded like what Kurt was saying is, not only was this financially not part of the bids, but there's some brick and mortar infrastructure sort of stuff. In other words, it wasn't part of the plan, part of the plans as to where what it is you're asking for might go in the.
Do you want
Why
to
don't you
come
go up to
with
the
an answer?
So, can you clarify that for me? It sounded like there was an issue or a problem related to this.
No, what I was
Physically.
referring to was technology systems that are included, and there's multiple options for that, not just data center driven, like video and audio within the courtrooms or video and audio within conference rooms. Those sorts of things were what I was talking about. What Tim is referring to here, and we work with multiple counties, and every IT director handles it differently in regards to how they want to manage their new systems. He's talking about a virtualized system that is different in regards to the infrastructure of what it's done otherwise with staff. I think that's the model that he's bringing to you here. It's a different way to approach it than other counties have decided to do it. That doesn't make one better than the other. It's a matter of how they decide they're going to manage that infrastructure. But the new data center and the infrastructure in that data center is included in the number. It's included in our budget. Now, what I would propose before we move forward is let's get the bids in. Let's identify where we sit with that number. And this can be something that is part of the project if the funding allows. If it doesn't, that will be something that we'll have to address at the committee level. But that's how I would approach it at this point. Because we're a couple years off before you're gonna occupy that space, and we can come up with a seamless process there.
Can I try to make it a little more?
Mike. Your mic.
Your mic. Sure. Thank you. Is there are there rooms in the plan now for this? And is there a
Yes.
way to get the wires from point A to point B without having to knock a hole in a concrete wall?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Good. That was the simple
We've been
question I
involved
was
in the
going
design
for.
process from the beginning with them, and they've been very accommodating, and really, these people have done this before. So all those connections and cable trays and wiring closets and all that, they've thought it through and they've done it 1,000 times. So we're good there.
Good.
So using the nifty laptop that we got, I wanted to look it up because I've heard the term virtualization. So if I understand you correctly, we're going to be basically hardware-assisted virtualization? So you'll be using the old to...
Well, the backup solution we currently have is designed for virtual environments because nobody does physical servers anymore. Everybody has a virtualized solution pretty much. So most of the backup systems are designed so that you just restore the entire image on a host machine. Well, the only virtualization we currently have is a single host for the Sheriff's Department public safety software system, but it's not redundant. So if we have a drive fail or a failure of a CPU in that particular host appliance, we're down for a long time, and it's going to be very painful. This is a virtualized solution that just expands on that, and we've already scoped out the project and have a good idea where we want to go with that. I could send you a virtualization. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, something like that, that has the details on what we're looking for in a way that explains it. It's really difficult to try and impart all the information you need on a virtualized solution without boring you to sin.
Okay, that'd be cool, yeah, because it's Wix, you know.
Yeah, and one of the projects that's on hold is with those laptops. We have purchased Intune. It'll allow us to remotely connect to your devices and put new files and stuff on your computer. We're going to be working on the SharePoint so you're allowed to download the packets and all the information you need for your subcommittee meetings. We have to work on training you and getting you into the system and all those things. But right now, my staff is just a little overwhelmed before we can go there. And that's too bad. I've really been very impressed with how all of you have embraced your devices. We've gotten a lot of pertinent questions, and people seem to be using them, so
These are
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, we're excited for that project. It's just we have higher priorities right now.
I say we just give you all the money you need.
Don't ever tell an IT guy that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He needs a moment.
I'm serious. I know how people have struggled this week with the server being down and not being able to do things, so whatever you need, I'm ready to give it to you.
Well, I was going to lay it on thicker because you should never let a good crisis go to waste.
It was a crisis. It is a crisis.
It is a crisis, and we learned a lot of valuable things from it.
Right.
Our backup system is designed for the 95% of instances where somebody deleted a file or somebody deleted a directory or moved it somewhere and they can't find it or they need to get a previous version. We can pull those up in minutes and it works great. Or if there's a major disaster and we get wiped out, in the 2 weeks it takes to get everything back up, we just restore it all. Well, it's not really good for the one missing volume because when we try to restore that volume, we have nowhere to put it. I'd have to buy a server to bring in.
Right.
It's just meh. So, meh. We're doing it on the cheap, and I'm really proud of all the staff for being so considering and patient and working with us and allowing this big delay. It's unacceptable. We do not ever want to experience anything like this again.
Or ransomware attacking the.
Well, we don't even like saying that out.
System. I mean, that would be a nightmare. I mean, I don't even want to think about it.
We are equally frightened of that prospect as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to I also have a clarification question. Really, it's more for Kurt. Tim made this pitch to the property committee, and I heard it there, and he made it to the exec finance committee. I heard it there, and so I've had a lot of time to think about it. But in the meantime, since the last time I heard it, which was the exec finance committee, which was 2 weeks ago, we've had this massive server failure, and I think what the words Tim uttered about 5 minutes ago were carve out funds. So I think that was the key question in front of both of those committees. When you're talking about carving out funds, my question is carving which turkey? Or, where are those funds going to come from?
Well, that's why you get paid the big bucks,
Yeah,
Tim, because you guys have to decide that.
Well, but we can't make a decision without good information from you. So, Kurt, what I think I just heard you say is that you're suggesting that this whole carving process, or this proposition of how much money, or where to get the money for this IT request, it would come better after the bid, all the other bids have been let out?
I would keep the knives in the drawer for now. Let's get the bids in.
Okay.
And we can figure out what we carve.
I just love when you continue my metaphor. That's great. Okay, so that's really key. All right.
One of the key components that we're gonna get with that, with the bids, is we're gonna get an electrical contractor that has bid all of the specs that have been put into the IT infrastructure and those components. What I would like to do with that is actually get that individual involved with Tim, because they're gonna be the contractor putting it in, along with the engineers, make sure we're all on the same page on the infrastructure, because I don't want to hold there before we ever award, okay? And at that point, we will have all the bid tabulation, we'll know where we are we on budget, over budget, under budget, and we can identify if we want to carve out a portion of that project specifically for that. The thing we gotta remember is that within that carving process, we've still got some remodeling that needs to be done here. So it's gonna be a balancing act of all of that. When the bids come in and the requests that are made, we have to identify where are we going to spend that money and how much is allocated for each component there. So it's good to let you know that there is a component out there that's outside of the typical scope of the project. If we can find it within the funds to do it, I'm all for it. And it's just a matter of let's get to the point where we know what those numbers are, and then we can come back with some informed data for you so that we can make those decisions.
All right, well, thank you for keeping us in the loop on this, instead of coming at us in 6 months and say, well, geez, you really have to spend some money. Now we know about it in advance.
And I'd like to address that. I love that answer, except for the part about waiting. The networking component, as soon as I know what's included with the networking, I have to move quickly, and it's going to take time because we don't have the staff on hand to even scope that project out. So we'll have to work with, we're proposing that we select a vendor to help us scope the project as well as select a solution. And that's going to take a long time. They're going to have to figure out what the network is and what the network is going to be. And we'd like to get that in place before we move over to that building.
It'll definitely, yeah.
Okay. It's because we're going to need at least a 6 months lead on that to pull that off.
I think, based on what we heard in the last 2 meetings, we're knocking on the door of bid pack 2. It's really very close. So I think we're okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that the reason I'm asking now and bringing it up now, one, to inform you, but two, it takes a long time to plan these things out, and especially when we're dealing with so many other irons in the fire. And we just wanted to make sure that we had time to make decisions and plan things appropriately and select the right solutions without having to wait until, well, the carpeting, we're going to have to downgrade that, and I guess we can't do the data center. We don't want to be at the end of this conga line.
Dave, go ahead.
Is there any way at all that you can blame this on COVID? Like an overworking of the networks from work from home, or, I mean?
Well, it certainly has created some issues, but I don't expect that that's going to go away. The mobility feature of suddenly making your workforce remote, I'm really glad that the IT department met in early February and started planning that out, because we wouldn't have been able to pull it off without that lead time. And but that's not going away. The fact that you're all going to be having devices for us to support, and we have other staff around the county that are going to be more hybrid, and so that creates new security issues. We have bring your own device is becoming an issue. Lots of county staff are doing business on their personal devices because they need to be mobile. I'm not at my desk a lot, so it rings my phone. I check my mail on my phone. So is that creating a security issue? And so we have to try and figure out ways to be prepared for those things we haven't thought of yet.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Item C, Sheriff's Quarterly Report.
I don't think I'll be as long as any of my predecessors, so that depends on how many questions you ask. So we'll see. So I'm just going to give you some numbers like I typically do quarterly. I'm going to run through it kind of quick, but then I'll just focus a little bit more on the annual report, touch on some highlights there, and give you a chance to ask questions about that if you'd like. So, but I'll start out with the statistics for the Sheriff's Office. For April, May, and June is the months we're talking here. The Sheriff's Office initiated 3,885 calls for service. And that's an average of 40 per day. But not every one of them requires a deputy to respond to something, or it doesn't even require somebody to write a report for something, but it's a number for every single thing we do. And that number for April, May, and June is 3,885. Some crime data, drug abuse violations for those 3 months. We took out 53 new cases for arrests, information, new investigations that began, all to do with all of the various drug violations, including possession of paraphernalia. That number is up about 7 from the previous quarter. Simple assaults, which is basically your disorderly conducts, somebody grabbing somebody or just somebody yelling at somebody, called a simple assault. We had 40 of those in those 3 months. We took 6 burglary calls and 17 theft calls. In that same time period last year, it was 2 burglary calls and 8 theft calls. So our theft and burglary numbers continue to be up as they were in our first quarter. Drug endangered children, we took out 2 new investigations for that, and that is we have a deputy that works with Human Services and basically goes out and investigates the conditions of a home when we get a call where drugs are present as well as children. And those cases oftentimes drag on. They're really involved. So 2 new cases doesn't mean that we only did 2 cases in that quarter. It means we added 2 to the stack that she's already investigating. Some crash data, 48 crashes called into dispatch in that time period. This is about the slowest quarter we have throughout the year for crashes. Of those, only 7 were car deer accidents. Again, that's April, May, and June. June, there really gets to be a lot more car deer accidents. You see a lot more deer laying along the road, but they don't all get called into the Sheriff's Office. We only respond if there's road blockage or personal injury. Anybody else that calls in, we direct them to an online portal with the Department of Motor Vehicles where they do their reporting there. So property damage were 34 in that time period. Crashes that resulted in injury, there were 29. And we did have 1 motorcycle versus deer crash up in the town of Hale that resulted in a fatality. You might have heard just recently that we had that. That one is the second one. We had one back in June as well. So we've had 2 up in the town of Hale this year now where a motorcycle has struck a deer. So some enforcement numbers. We issued 229 traffic citations, 24 non-traffic citations. And the non-traffic citations are ordinance violations for stuff that would otherwise be state statutes. We just incorporate them into the county ordinances and issue a non-traffic ticket for that. And 436 warnings for moving traffic violations. On the mental health side of things, we responded to 17 emergency detention evaluations. I don't know how many of them actually resulted in emergency detention. I do know that a good share of them result in a safety plan being developed between Northwest Connections, Human Services, and our staff to try to keep the person from having to go all the way over to Winnebago and being in that secure facility for a number of days. So, but 17 is a pretty high number of mental health crisis. And these are new ones, not on top of the ongoing ones. So we had 17 new ones called in. The jail report, you have that in front of you. You didn't get it early before the meeting, but you had it on your desk when you got here. I'll just point out that our total average population for April, May, and June was 42, 38, and 38 respectively. That is quite a bit below, or quite a bit above 2020's numbers, but yet below 2019 numbers. Typically, we start falling now, moving forward throughout the next few months. You'll notice a decrease, I think, because that's what's happened the last few years. The fall numbers, they have dropped, and then they pick up again towards the end of the year and into the first of the next year. Some some anomalies we have in our jail with the inmates are suicide watches and suicide attempts. I've been reporting those recently. You'll see that we had 7 suicide watches in April, 2 in May, and 5 in June, and then 4, 2, and 1 suicide attempts. So we've actually had some unsuccessful attempts at suicide in our jail over that 4-month or 3-month period as well. COVID medical observations are still a very big part of our jail operations in those 3 months. We had 42, 73, and 63 medical observations throughout April, May, and June. And what that is somebody gets booked into our jail and they are isolated for a period of 14 or now it's 10 days. So that's that number. Everybody that comes in had to get isolated. Now in July, in our next county report, quarterly report, you'll hear that we're changing that a little bit. We're working with the health department and getting guidance from the CDC, and we're starting to relax our COVID protocols in the jail. You will see those numbers go down. It'll be a temperature check when they get here, and vaccinations will be offered, and if they prove that they've been vaccinated when they are booked in, they won't have to do the 10-day isolation period. So I foresee a number of those numbers dropping significantly. Again, over the last 3 months, we've started vaccinating our inmates who are willing to take the vaccination. Recently, the health department was made aware of we can actually have testing, rapid testing kits right on site now. That's going to help. We haven't got them yet. They're in order. But along with the vaccinations and rapid testing, we should be able to really start reducing those COVID isolation numbers, which hopefully will start improving the mental health of the folks that are in our jail. You'll see the serious mental health issues are very high, 15 in June, 20 in May, and 17 or 15 in April, 20 in May, 17 in June. That's a number of people who have experienced mental health crisis while in our jail. Not the number of days, it's the number of people, and those go on for a number of days. So that's basically a jail report in a nutshell. Anybody have any questions about the statistics before we talk a little bit about the yearly report? The annual report is for 2020. Normally you see this in April, but due to a number of circumstances, it just wasn't feasible to present it back then, so I have some time now. The very top sheet there talks about the 5 traffic fatalities we had in 2020, resulted in 6 deaths. All but 1 occurred on the Highway 93 corridor. The second one from the bottom, you'll see it says July 16th, 2020. That did not occur on Highway 93. That was actually on Highway 35, just east of Trempealeau. But the other 4 were 4 crashes that resulted in 5 deaths. Of those, all but 1 involved the alcohol or drugs. So I've been working with Al Rinka with the Highway Department and the State Patrol. We're going to be doing aerial enforcement out there in the next couple of weeks on the Highway 93 corridor to try to get the folks to slow down and to get some of the drug or impaired drivers off the road, get the public aware that we're doing it. I mean, we're going to be doing some advertising ahead of time so everybody will know that we're doing it, and hopefully it results in a safer highway. 93 is under construction south of Arcadia, of course, so you won't see much down there, but the new from Arcadia north to Oliva is where we're going to be focusing for this detail. If you go to page 6 and 7, it talks about some numbers of the year for the Sheriff's Office. Civil process was down in 2020, from 2019. Obviously, that's from COVID. We just didn't serve as many. The courts were very relaxed and reduced activity, so therefore the civil processes were way down. Jail statistics, you'll see in 2020 we booked in a total number of 652 people. From a high of 2018, we booked in 1,055 people. That's a result of some pretty drastic activities or actions we made, including asking the courts to consider delaying judgment of convictions to report to jail. We weren't arresting as many on warrants. We were giving out dates to return later on. But that is all ramping up again now, and those numbers are, the bookings are going to be back up to normal again in 2021. I just want to point out that that low number in 2020 is really a temporary number. It's all because of COVID. The top of page 7, you'll see that as of right now in 2020, we spent $89,000 in out-of-county housing. Typically, the budgets have been anywhere from $150,000 to $230,000 over the time period of the last 5-6 years. Again, other jails weren't taking our inmates. We didn't have hardly those costs because the jails weren't taking our inmates starting in April of last year, and they didn't start taking them again until approximately November, December. We're on pace to be at or over $150,000 again this year for out-of-county housing. The revenue received for boarding of prisoners from the state of Wisconsin, again, that's low just because we didn't have the probation and parole holds like we normally had, all again due to COVID. Way down on the bottom, drug arrests, a significantly lower number in 2020. A reason for that is instead of arresting and actually bringing the person to jail, we would summons them to court instead. And we cannot account it as an arrest until we know that person has actually appeared in court. And we're still working on a means with the district attorney's office that we get notified when a person makes a court appearance for a crime that they were not arrested for. The uniform crime reporting is very complex, and they tell us we can't count it as an arrest until that person appears in court. So in 2020, we were giving court dates, not handcuffs. So that's why that number is so low. And that's kind of the highlight of the report. I don't know if you guys did get it a few days ago, I think. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. If you had any questions, I'll try to answer them tonight as well, or any other questions that you may have of Sheriff's Office functions.
Yes.
What percentage of the department or the deputies are crisis intervention trained? I know that was something you guys have been working on.
Yep. So in 2019, we were able to send 50% of the sworn personnel. In 2020, we were hoping to do the other 50%, but because of COVID, that fell through the wayside. So now that is back on our agenda to get the other 50% trained, but nothing has been set up yet.
Well, outstanding.
So, and I said it back then, and I'll say it again, it was in my yearly report last year, the training that those 50% went to, they said from the moment they got there, for the entire 40-hour week, they were engaged with this training. It really opened their eyes, and they come back with tools that they didn't have before. So,
any other questions?
That particular group went down to Ozaki County, down by Milwaukee, and I would imagine it was an outside agency that come in and did it. I don't think it was the sheriff's office that provided the training. They just hosted it. So.
Okay. Like through training and standards, maybe, or?
No, it wasn't training and standards.
It wasn't, okay.
No. It was. I suspect it was some mental health group, some hospital, or a group of mental health people that got together and put this curriculum together. So.
I have another question. Do you think that's something that should be an integral part of training and standards in, like recruit training and all of that with law enforcement?
Absolutely.
Is there talk of that within the?
That I don't know.
Okay.
We have a number of sheriffs that sit on a committee that works with training standards every year to continually try to improve that. I don't know where they're at right now with suggestions for increased training. So the Badger State Sheriff's Office talks about mental health a lot. We are actually lobbying with our representatives to improve response from the state of Wisconsin as far as getting regional, local and regional beds, so that we don't have to go all the way over to Winnebago. That would all be incorporated with the changes in training and standards. I just can't imagine how it would help us do our job, because so much of it right now is all based on mental health.
Right.
And it's the drug picture is bleak, and until we stop it from coming into our state, I don't see any improvement. And those who are on drugs, especially the meth and the heroin, are at significantly higher risk of mental health problems. So as the drug goes, the mental health issue is going to go. So we have to deal with two of them, and we need help from our federal and state partners with the drugs, and we need help from our local and state partners with the mental health part of it. So, but I think we're moving in the right direction for sure. So,
any other questions? Hearing none, thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Highway Department, Al Rinka.
I'm gonna show a PowerPoint to you guys here tonight. So if we could get these front lights turned off up here so you guys can see that a little bit better.
Back two switches. Back two.
So as you see on your agenda, the Highway Department is in need of a building. And I guess part of my job is going to be to demonstrate to you that, you know, is it a need versus a want? I feel that's a need. Every guy out at my Highway Department feels that it's a need. So if you could go to the next slide there, Tim. So why do we need a new building out there at the highway shop? The biggest reason for it is we've got costly maintenance expenses that are being caused by equipment sitting outdoors. I'm going to be showing you a aerial footage video here in just a minute of the layout of the land to show all the equipment that is sitting out there. So when this equipment sits outside, you know, we've got literally millions of dollars of equipment sitting, not hundreds of thousands, we have millions of dollars of equipment sitting outside. And when that equipment sits outside, it, you know, the sun beats on it, it weathers. When we have weathered equipment, it shortens the usable life. And we have to purchase that equipment sooner. You know, maybe we could wait 20 years on something that was stored inside. We're replacing equipment sometimes, you know, 10 or 15 years. It lowers the resale value. We see that in our dump trucks and our quad axle trucks, that our salesmen will tell us, you know, hey, if this paint was in better shape, you'd probably get an extra, you know, $8,000 for this truck. But because of the condition of the truck, the look of the paint, you know, the windshields are faded, that lowers the resale value. So that's more money than we need to put up front to replace that piece of equipment. You know, it causes the rust. You know, we all deal with rust. We deal with a lot of rust here because we're spreading salt in the winter times. So the sun UV that beats down on this equipment, we got a lot of skid steer attachments that sit out. We have hydraulic equipment on everything, and they have hydraulic hoses that are made of rubber. Well, the sun UV breaks down that rubber on those hydraulic hoses, and a lot of times, 9 times out of 10 of those hoses break, it's at the worst possible time. It's when we're in action, we are plowing snow, we are moving dirt, we have a crew of men standing around waiting for a hose to be replaced. So it's just costly. It's costly downtime. It adds labor costs. We have electrical problems from the wire harnesses. They dry rot, they deteriorate, things short out in the equipment. The equipment is at a standstill. Cold weather is a very big expense for us in the wintertime when we have equipment sitting outside. I mean, it goes without saying, it's costly. I mean, just like when you got to start your car in the morning, if you don't park it in the garage every night, you want to start your car and let it run, let it warm up, get that tranny fluid going, get your heater going. Well, these hydraulic lines and all this heavy equipment, if that equipment is mobilized sooner than that oil is heated up, we're blowing hoses. We've actually got a grater in our shop right now where we blew the hydraulic pump on it because the grater was started up. It wasn't completely warmed up, and they engaged it, and it exploded. It grenaded, as they call it. Very costly, and right now it's not usable. We have airlines, so the airlines will freeze, the airbags will freeze for our rear suspension. The mechanics, a lot of times in winter, they have to start early. They got to go out. It takes extra time for the mechanics to warm these pieces of machinery up for the operators. It's added expense. We got to pay the wages of those mechanics to be monkeying around with this stuff. The current building out there was built in 1977, our main shop. It was built in 1977. That building it's still a great building, but it was built to accommodate trucks of that era, single axle trucks. That's really all that existed back then. Well, in the last 15 plus years, the trucks are getting bigger. We're going to tandem axles and triaxles, and it's just simply to meet the demands of today's society, the heavier traffic. People want the roads cleared sooner. They want more salt on the roads. We need more capacity. The trucks need to get larger trucks. We need more storage space. So we've got times where we have the trucks in there, and it's actually, you have to walk sideways to get between the wall and the bumpers of these trucks because we got them squeezed in there so tightly. If you could go to the next slide there, Tim. So I was hoping this would be a little bit bigger to see, but I did start this process about 2 years ago. When I was here less than a year as working for Trempealeau County, I recognized within my first couple months out there that, wow, we are short on facility space out here. We've got equipment sitting all over. After I got my feet wet, I got a little more comfortable here. I started a process with an engineering firm, probably about 8 months of being here as a Trempealeau County employee, and I started the process of exploring new shop ideas, new storage building ideas. What could we do? So in that time, I've finally gotten to a point with this engineering firm that we're working with. This is an aerial site layout. So to the north is Highway 121 on the top of that photo. You'd come into the driveway, that oval-looking shape to the right, that would be a detention pond. That was added in there because in working with the railroad that runs along the west side of the property, they will not allow us to discharge any more stormwater into their railroad right away. So we have to find another place for the stormwater, which would be that detention pond you see there on the right, at increased earthworking costs. And then the big rectangular yellow shape there in the lower part, that is the new building, and then the black would be the parking lot and the driveway going around it. Our highway office where I sit is just to the right of the center of that yellow rectangle there. Next slide, Tim. Okay, yeah, that does not show up well, but the dimensions of the new proposed building is 350 feet long by 152 feet wide. That's 53,000 square feet. And then on the lower left, there's a 32 by 121 feet. That's a wash bay. Very critical. We currently have it's a 1970s wash bay is what we're washing our trucks in right now. Washing is absolutely essential with the equipment we use, especially the winter equipment with the salt and that. We are inadequate on our washing facilities, so we want to add a modern day wash bay to this facility, keep our current wash bay so we would have two. Just this wash bay would have the undercarriage spray system. It would have more powerful jets. It would be a drive-in, drive-out. We can wash semis in the wash bay. Next slide there. So this is just a rendering of what the new building could potentially look like. This would be standing by our existing highway shop, looking to the northwest. So we're looking at the southeast corner of the new building. So that big overhead door you see there, that would be the wash bay, the entrance to it. And then there'd be two large overhead doors where the end loader and the dump truck are sitting that would go into, and it'd just be a big open storage facility with overhead doors on the opposite end that would drive out on the north side. You see in the northeast corner there would be an overhang just to store materials under, whether it's paint beads, paint, our crack filling, tar. You know, we got various things. We just need roof space. Okay, so this here is going to be an aerial video that was taken about 3 weeks ago by the engineering firm. I just want you, because I know some of you have not been out to our highway facilities, and I want you to just take a look at our grounds and overlay. Go ahead, Tim. I'll just kind of talk through it. So we're going to be starting out flying from Highway 121, where you would enter our property, heading into the highway shop. Okay. So here you're coming in the driveway of the highway shop. That first building you see right there, that building is stuffed full of equipment already. And as you see the big green space right there on the right, that's where the new building would go, between the driveway and the railroad tracks. Right to the left there at that bluish green roof, that's my office. That's our big main shop right there, the one on the left. That was built in 1977. And then the big building on the right, that's just another storage building, stuffed full. And as you keep coming into the grounds, we're coming up to we call this the Hudson building with this green roof. That is stuffed full as well. You can see the equipment we've got sitting out. Here's some footage of inside our main shop building. I mean, we're stuffed.
Is that the drone flying sideways?
Just some more inside shots here of equipment parked inside here. This is our welding blacksmith bay area here and the mechanical side of the shop. Okay, so then Tim, on the bottom, yeah, I believe it's this one here. Let me see those tiles on the bottom of the screen, Tim. They've disappeared on me. Yeah, that there. If it will stay up for you. About in the right, one more left. Click on that one. This one? Left. Next one, right there. Okay, now hover your cursor over on the screen there, Tim, on that slide. We can pan around on that slide. Yes, here we go. Okay. So just stop right there, Tim. So if you guys look to the back of that building there, you see the equipment sitting outside. That's all stuff we can't fit in buildings. There's a couple $1 million worth of equipment sitting right there. Right there to the left, you can kind of see where that's all snowplow equipment that is wrapped around the edge of that grass around that parking lot. That sits outside all summer when it's not on our plow trucks. That's just getting sun, it's rusting away. And then it makes them a charter when it comes time to put the equipment back on in the winter time for us to use it. Tim, if you could pan around now to the right. A little more, keep coming, and then, okay, right there, you see going up that grass strip, those are all skid steer attachments, very expensive equipment. Everything has hydraulic hoses. We have no rough space to put any of that under there. And then obviously you can see all the equipment sitting on the other side of that green building. And then on this side of the green building is all of our snow plows that are currently off the trucks because it's summertime. And I just want to mention too that since I've been here, we have put a lean-to on every building we could possibly put a lean-to on out at that highway shop, just to get roof space, to get things out of the rain, out of the sun. And we still didn't gain much. We have a lot sitting outside. So I guess is there anything before I'm done with this slideshow or this video here? Anybody have any questions on the grounds or the layout or want to see anything from that aerial view? Because if not, we get to the last slide, which everybody wants to know is what is this thing going to cost? So, and working with this engineering firm, that size of building that we have figured out right now, he did this estimate about a month ago. It is at $4.8 million. That's with the site work, that's with the building, that's with everything. There would be storm sewer involved. Granted, those prices are a little high because we all know from the pandemic, material prices are still really high. Yeah, it's expensive. So funding ideas, an idea that I've told the highway committee, I'm suggesting that the highway department, we could offer to fund $1 million of it with their own highway department money. And then the remaining money, would come from either this ARPA money that, I know there's still things to be figured out with that. Trempealeau County's getting $5.7 million. I know it's a lot, it has to be pandemic related, but I think there are, and just in things I've heard, there are creative ways that it can be spent, maybe for infrastructure, but that's to be determined later on. My point here today is just to demonstrate to you guys that yes, there is a need. This didn't just arise with my being here as highway commissioner. This is a need that probably was needed about 20 years ago. We don't have any more equipment now than we did years ago. It's the same amount of equipment. We've added maybe 2 pieces of equipment since I've been here that weren't here prior. So this is something that has been needed, and I'm finally breaking the ice to the county that the highway department is in need of a building. And I'm just trying to demonstrate to you the needs of it. It's not a want. In my mind and many minds, it is a need, and there's needs all over. We've got a building going on across the street. I just heard Brett talk. There's needs for money there. Tim talked about needs for IT, so I get it, not easy. I'm just here to let you guys know the situation out there, and that I would like the discussion to kind of get going on it and to be in the back of everyone's mind. And I do want to come to exec finance, talk about it with them there, see what ideas there are. But it's something that would be needed sooner than later. Any questions? Tim?
Is this are you proposing a heated
Yeah,
building?
it would be heated storage, correct, yep.
Concrete floor?
Yep, concrete floor. And, you know, it's something we'd probably keep around 50 degrees, just to keep things thawed out.
Sure.
Sally?
Isn't this something we could borrow money to do?
Good, but then it still goes on taxes.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you could borrow money for it, but it does go on taxes, so, yeah, it could be borrowed for.
well, I think counting on the 5.7 to come to the county, even 3 or 4 million of it, when nobody's even talked about to do with it, is probably not a good plan A. I think I mean, obviously the need exists, but nobody's even talked about what we're going to do with that money. We haven't figured out yet even what that looks like. So, yeah, what's the plan B?
Well, right.
Yep. Yeah, I know this is probably kind of hitting all you guys out of left field, like, whoa, highway needs a $5 million. What? You know, when I was here, you know, last couple of years saying I need all this money for roads, you know, and again, I want to clarify, it's not me needing it. I'm a voice for the taxpayers that are interested in a nice road, so I don't need the money. You know, it's our county roads is what needs the money. And here our highway shop, and now things kind of follow suit. You know, we need a building out there.
Plus, you still need the road money.
And we still need the road money. That's not going to go away, right? I mean, that we need to keep that level up. And
Sal, or Jeannie?
I know we look alike. Do we have any clue what the infrastructure bill that's pending in Congress would, I mean, is that money going to go to states, or don't we even know yet? Anybody know?
Don't even know if we're gonna get it. That's
Right. I mean, it's likely that first bill would pass, the one that has a bipartisan group. But I haven't heard how that money would go. States, I mean, this is certainly an infrastructure thing that is necessary. I'm sure you're not the only highway department in the state that's struggling with issues for storing equipment, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Sally.
So would this be like a 2022 budget request, or are you just bringing this to us for informational?
I don't know. You know, I've kind of been talking about it with highway for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's talked about when am I going to bring this to, you know, the board, because, you know, I wanted to do something last year on it. Well, you know, the courthouse, I mean, that's the Justice Center. That's been the talk, in addition to the money that, you know, we've been bonding for the roads. So now all of a sudden I come with something completely different yet, and say, you know, now I need money for roads, but in addition to that, we need a highway building. So, yeah, I mean, is it a 22 request? I mean, one other thought I had too, Sally, was I could, you know, I said we could fund about $1 million of it. I thought maybe like next year, we self-fund the site work, get the site work done in 22, get that out of the way. Then all we're left with is the building to deal with. And maybe that would be like a 23 or 24 request. So it's just something, yeah, you know, it needs the conversation needs to be had to figure those questions out.
I mean, the need's obvious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what your main deal was tonight, just show the need.
Just show the need, get it on everybody's radar, you know, and just get it in the back of our minds. So it's really my only goal tonight is, yeah, I'm not coming saying, we need to figure out a way to pay for it, you know, tonight. No, not at all. It's just there's a need there, and it needs to be addressed, and something needs to be done sooner than later. It's already 20 years past due, and that's my opinion. So that's all I got. If nobody has anything else for me.
Thanks, Al.
Okay.
Item 6A, environmental land use.
When we hit the light switches back.
Oh, yeah. Wow. A rezone, exclusive ag. Town of Hill.
Whereas Jeremiah T. Stegerstrom, petitioner, Jeremiah T. and Jessica M. Segerstrom, landowner, Strum, Wisconsin, have requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Hale to be able to split the property at the existing parcel boundary. Whereas the rezone is on approximately 60 acres more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to section 59.69 parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Hale supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from exclusive agriculture, EA, to exclusive agriculture 2, EA2, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated. Introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Anthony Munson.
Motion from Mr. Wallach, seconded by Mr. Skoyan.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to do the usual
Okay.
summary thing. I was not present at the meeting, so I'm counting on the other committee members to add any information. The exclusive ag allows for one house per 40. Exclusive ag 2 allows for 2 houses per 40. This being a 60-acre parcel, it would require EA2 in order to build the second house, which is what the what the plan is for this 23-acre-ish parcel. There was a farmland preservation contract, but that was relinquished 7 years ago in 2014. There was a public hearing held. As I understand it, there was no concerns raised by any of the neighbors or anyone for that matter, and it was supported by the town. So it seems to me it made sense to the Environment and Land Use Committee to approve the rezone.
Any other comments? Nope, we can go to the vote.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach. Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltus.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian. Beth Killian. Got a vote? Do you want to vote?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I signed it, I'm voting yes.
17-0.
Okay. Second one, ordinance for a rezone of land in the town of Pigeon.
Whereas John C. Kulig and M. Kathleen Kulig, Pigeon Falls, Wisconsin, landowner petitioners have requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Pigeon to create residential lots. Whereas the rezone is on approximately 16.5 acres more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to section 59.69 parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Pigeon supports the rezone request, whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from exclusive agriculture 2, EA2, to residential 8, R8, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Anthony Munson.
Looking for a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion by Jeannie Nutter. Seconded by Chuck Pollock.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Again, the application was received last April. It did not come before this committee, obviously, until a few months later. Apparently, the applicant was concerned about COVID and wanted to postpone. It's a rezone of approximately 16.5 acres. It's now residential and recreational. They want to divide it into two different parcels. In the north would be about 10 acres and include the house. The south would be 6.5 acres. And and it would be kept when they sell the house. Apparently, there was a couple people there who had questions. Maybe another committee member could talk about what that was about.
Yeah, there were some concerned neighbors, particularly about the possibility of multiple lots. However, the current rezone would not even allow for more than one more occupancy on the parcel anyway, so there was no reason to
That R8 would refer to eight lots per 40, and this only being less than 20. It would
Right.
just
yeah,
2 lots.
particularly challenging terrain on that parcel.
Yeah. So the town supported it, and so did the committee.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Vote.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin. Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz. Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes.
Yes.
17-0.
Okay, ordinance for the rezone of land in the town of Sumner.
Whereas Joshua T. Daffinson, petitioner, Joshua T. and Alexandria R. Daffinson, landowner, Osseo, Wisconsin, have requested the rezone of a parcel of land in the town of Sumner for headquarters for an auto repair, lawn care, and excavation business. Whereas the rezone is on approximately .670 acres, more or less, and whereas a public hearing was held pursuant to Section 59.69 parentheses 5 of the Wisconsin statutes, and whereas the town of Sumner supports the rezone request, and whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee moved to rezone this parcel from transitional agriculture, TA, to commercial, C, and it appears that the zoning change request is appropriate under the circumstances. Now be it resolved that the county adopt the attached ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries as indicated. Introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, Kellen Nelson, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson, Beth Killian, Kurt Skoyan, Anthony Munson.
Killian will make a motion to approve.
Motion by Killian, seconded by Skoyan. Mr. Brandt.
Yes. This is not far from Osseo, from what I can tell. About 2 miles south of Osseo. West, rather. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. I forget 53 goes west sometimes. There is commercial nearby, and the land use plan for the township has this as R20, which would be a heavier developed area. The notification was put in, published for 2 consecutive weeks. All the adjoining landowners were notified, and there were no responses for or against. And again, the township supported it, as did the committee.
Okay. No other comments?
For those who are wondering, this is basically right where 53, after it travels west out of Osseo, takes a turn to the north.
Okay, the vote.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyan.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes.
Yes.
George Brandt.
Yes.
Beth Killian.
Yes.
Randy Tollefson.
Yes.
Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
17-0.
I'm not sure this one's gonna do us any good, because I think they've already accepted all their.
The deadline is passed, I think, for
Deadline for the
resolutions.
resolutions is
But we can
passed,
still,
but
we'll still send it.
We'll send it and see what happens. So, resolution requests the Wisconsin County Association address clean water issues.
And it just as a point of reference to, we got the list already of the resolutions that are being presented, and there was one from, I think, Langley County on clean water, so probably it'll be addressed anyway. Whereas the citizens of Trempealeau County are reliant on clean drinking water and clean lakes for their health and economic vitality. And whereas Trempealeau County recognizes that clean water is not just a local issue, but is a matter of statewide concern. And whereas some Wisconsin counties have passed resolutions supporting a referendum being placed on the local ballots that says shall the state of Wisconsin establish a right to clean water to protect human health, the environment, and the diverse economy, cultural, and natural heritage of Wisconsin. Whereas Trumpealeau County supports these referenda and is recommending to the Wisconsin Counties Association that this resolution be added to their annual resolutions that are accepted as matters of statewide concern. Now therefore be it resolved that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors declares that all citizens of the state of Wisconsin deserve clean drinking water, and be it further resolved that Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors requests that the Wisconsin Counties Association consider adding this issue and declaration to its matters of statewide concern at the 2021 annual meeting. And be it further resolved that upon passage of this resolution, the Trumpealeau County Clerk will send a copy of this resolution to the Wisconsin Counties Association, to all Wisconsin counties, and to local members of the state legislature. Respectfully submitted, introduced by Environment and Land Use Committee, Beth Killian, Kellen Nelson, Kurt Skoyen, Charles Wallach, Randy Severson, Anthony Munson.
Motion by Brandt, seconded by Nutter. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll just go to the vote.
And you can ask all those in favor, because this
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's carried.
We'll find out.
Okay, down to B, Audit Committee. Members' claims.
Whereas the Audit Committee has audited the following claims and recommend that they be allowed as follows. John Austin, $1,033.68. It gets better. George Brandt, $276.16. Joe Feltes, $69.04. Michelle Haynes, $50. Ron Johnson, $142.56. Beth Killian, $524.32. Sally Miller, $2,265.92. Kellen Nelson, $461.60. Rick Nimitz, $254.16. Jeannie Nutter, $625.44. Richard Seisha, $316.48. Dan Schreiner, $200. Kurt Skoyen, $930.72. Randy Tollefson, $947.64. Chuck Wallach, $281.36. Douglas Winters, $753.96. Tim Zeglin, $300.40. Total per diems, $7,150. Total expenses, $2,283.44. Grand total, $9,433.44. Now be it resolved that the claims be allowed as shown, introduced by Audit Committee, John Austin, Kurt Skoyen, Ron Johnson.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd just like to get in a word of explanation for my exorbitantly high request that is actually.
We got to
2
get a
months.
motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, motion for.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Wallach, seconded by Brandt.
Now you
Now, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's flagrant, but it's 2 months, that's why. I forgot the previous one.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
now I feel shamed. That is 8 months for me.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that will be recoverable through
Yes,
COVID
we
funds.
will be turning that in for FEMA reimbursement.
Yeah, this is mostly COVID.
COVID
Mostly
committee,
COVID,
which
and it's
is
all
pretty-
reimbursable, so.
Pretty much a daily deal.
Now what's yours?
Mine was highway. The biggest share of it is highway, which brought. Yeah, that was, we had the conference and that. So that's what dragged, if you add Randy's and, yeah, that's why ours is big. Okay. Any other comments? Matt, call the roll.
Kellen Nelson. What? Well, it moves around. 17 different ones every time, okay. Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen. Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz.
Yes.
Douglas Winters.
Yes.
Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha.
Yes.
Joe Feltes. George Brandt. Beth Killian. Randy Tollefson. Michelle Haynes.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach.
Yes.
Tim Zeglin.
Yes.
Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
17-0.
Okay. Appointments, it says I got a,
We should have that letter, yep.
yeah. This is a.
Do you want, oh, okay.
You want me to read it, or you want?
You want- I can
No,
read it
go
for
ahead
you.
and read it.
Okay. This is to County Board Chair John Austin from Deb Sukla, Human Services Director. I am writing to ask that Paula Henches be appointed by you as County Board Chair and request confirmation by the County Board as a new member of the ADRC Advisory Council to fill a vacancy. She was recommended by the Human Service Board for your consideration. There is an additional vacancy remaining on the ADRC Advisory Council. The Human Service Board will submit a recommendation for that position at its earliest convenience.
Okay. So that name is Paula Hedges?
Henches.
Paula Henches. Paula Henches. Proposing her name for the ADRC committee. Looking for. Okay, motion by Nutter to approve. Second by Miller. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now where are we on this thing?
Just about done.
Correspondence, I didn't have any.
Nope.
Item 10, right? Oh, the
Number
budget. 8A.
In your packets, you should have the, no, they were all handed out this time, wasn't it? They
Yeah.
didn't get done in time for mailing out. Is the expenses for the month through June, and also the sales tax and general fund balances. It was a big surprise for the June payment for sales tax. If you notice, it's $255,000 compared to $164 last year and $169 the year before. So, I mean, and one of the reasons you can use the ARPA money is for lost revenues, and this is shooting that right out the. So.
Right.
But if you have any questions on anything, let me know.
Item 10, instruct the clerk to pay mileage per diem. Looking for a motion.
Instruct the clerk to pay mileage and per diem.
Seconds came from I'll take Mr. Johnson's second there. Motion by Brandt, seconded by Johnson. Call the roll on that one.
Okay, Sally Miller.
Yes.
Richard Seisha. Joe Feltus. George Brandt. Beth Killian. Randy Tollefson. Michelle Haynes. John Austin.
Yes.
Chuck Wallach. Tim Zeglin. Dan Schreiner.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Kurt Skoyen.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Rick Nimitz. Doug Winters.
Yes.
17-0.
Oh. Next meeting is August 16th
Yes.
at 7 PM.
Back to 7. Yep.
Back to 7 PM. This actually went pretty well tonight. I thought, yeah. I got a cold that's been bugging me. But anyway, we can adjourn at 11 or 8:47.
8:47.
So, 11, item 11. Adjourn at 8:47.
Perfect. Pound it. There you go. Before you do leave, I need to know.